You are listening to the Rich Eisen schooling Brockman on Why He Is Always Wrong show.
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
844-204-RICH is the number to dial.
The Rich Eisen Show. Today's guests: World Series champion pitcher Barry Zito, Baseball Hall of Famer Rod Carew, Atlanta Falcons head coach Dan Quinn, Tony and Grammy Award winner David Diggs, plus Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Welcome to this edition of the Rich Eisen Show. We're live on the air on a Thursday, and I'm not going to lie to you, folks.
Please don't.
Good to see you, Brockman.
Hey,
good to see you, Del Tufo.
Good to see you, Rich.
You know, it's so funny. Every single time, T.J. Jefferson, our social media Grand Maester, begins the show with a putt on our putting surface
that he normally misses.
Well, it doesn't mean.
Misses 9 out of 10.
As you know, we're center cut every day. We're center cut every day on this show. And then he walks behind you guys, and he's afraid to be caught on camera. It's all good, TJ. People know what you look like. It's all good. Very good. Once again, TJ speaking
Again,
without a microphone.
No microphone.
So basically,
I'm all good about it.
He missed the putt. He talks without a microphone. It's going to be a great show. And I knew it was going to be a great show coming in today because of two things. This show, it's been 5.5 years we've been on the air, maybe even longer now. I probably even longer now, right? We're on the other side of 5.5 years. This is probably the most daddy points I'm going to have in the history of this program.
Oh, is it because of our first guest?
Well, I mean, there's two guests. My kids have been nuts about Hamilton for years.
Okay.
And we've never had anybody from Hamilton on this program. And David Diggs, who played Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson, will be on this program. He's on the show promoting his show on TNT, Snowpiercer. They're so excited about it. They picked it up for season 2 already, and it's premiering Sunday. And he's a diehard Warriors fan. I'm excited to talk hoops with him.
All right.
So that's daddy points, and that was already through the roof. And Barry Zito is on the program. Now, why would my kids be so nuts about Barry Zito? They're not A's fans. They're not San Francisco Giants fans. They're fans of the Masked Singer. Barry Zito was unmasked last night as the Rhino.
Hey, now.
And Barry Zito's first up on this program. And then there's Rod Carew. So we've got the Rhino and we've got the Twinkie, one of the all-time greatest Twinkies of all time, right?
The Rhino and the Twinkie.
Also,
that's
the Rhino and the Twinkie's a terrible cop show.
Bad cop show.
And then we've got not one but two National Football League head coaches. Not one but two. Mike Vrabel is going to finish up strong as our final guest in our final segment in our final hour that's picked up on NBCSN. And then Dan Quinn of the Falcons will be on. And there's been a little bit of news made on the Atlanta Falcons front today. Dirk Cutter, the offensive coordinator of the Falcons, the latest what's old is new again. Dirk Cutter was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta and performed so well he got a shot at being the HC in Tampa. And those were the, I don't know if this is a great band or not, the Matt Ryan Salad Days.
Wow.
Was Dirk Cutter being the offensive coordinator.
We've really rung up some good fantasy names.
Yeah, Dirk Cutter, you know. Oh, it's fine on the sound, but we're definitely getting our antennas up because if you remember, we had Thomas Dimitroff on the program, the Atlanta Falcons general manager. And by the way, I know Matt Ryan had an MVP type year with Kyle Shanahan being the offensive coordinator.
He did.
But Dirk Cutter was they had some great years offensively with him there. Now he's back. And we had Thomas Dimitroff, the Atlanta Falcons general manager, on a few weeks ago prior to the draft. And we talked about Todd Gurley. And I don't know if they've had they must have had a physical since then because they did sign him to a contract. But Dirk Cutter essentially said nobody knows what he's like health-wise. He averaged 17 carries a game last year, which was less than his Pro Bowl season. So we won't know until we get him here. His head coach, Dan Quinn, will be on this program later on, and we'll have a conversation with Dan Quinn and Mike Vrabel, the Titans head coach, similar to the one that we had yesterday with Brian Kelly, the head coach of Notre Dame football, part of their world right now is setting up the world for them, for the teams to return eventually, whenever that may happen. Although we have testimony on Capitol Hill right now, the if you will, whistleblower, Dr. Rick Bright, telling the committee in the House that he feels that they're 18 months away still from a vaccine for COVID-19.
Yikes.
Okay, which means we're going to have to learn how to live with this virus for a very long time, because the world's not sheltering in place for another year and a half, that's for sure. So you got to prepare your facilities for everything, social distancing, and then hopefully some therapeutics and testing. My gosh, the testing that's going to be required. So we'll talk to Vrabel about how they're setting all this stuff up, and head coaches or Zoom meetings and all of that business. So that's later on in this program. And then there's also the issue of fans, correct? And I know you want to get to that later on, fans in the stands. I know the Carolina Panthers owner has spoken about this.
Correct. So is Joe
Joe
Buck.
Buck has talked about there being potentially no fans in the stands, but we will hear fans in the stands.
Right.
Which I have no problem with, by the way. But I do want to start this program with comments from Blake Snell, who one would say is, I know Charlie Morton was performing very well, but I guess the ace of the Tampa Bay Rays staff, would you say that? The youngest?
Yeah, he won a
Best
Cy Young
pitcher? Okay.
2 years ago.
There you go. And so Blake Snell went on his Twitch feed and took some questions from fans. Now, before we hear what he had to say, let me just set all of this stuff up with a timeline. Baseball and the Players Association discussed back in March about prorating players' salaries based on how many games are played in the 2020 season. They did that back in March, looking over the steering wheel and seeing that this COVID-19 pandemic was beginning to hit the United States of America, placing the 2020 season in jeopardy of not starting on time. And as we all know, as we're sitting here on May 14th, it's not starting on time. Still have no baseball. Now, we're hoping to have baseball potentially in July, and the reason why we know that is on Monday, the players and the rest of the world heard that baseball and owners approved a plan to place in front of the Major League Baseball Players Association about how to play baseball in 2020. Now, we had Charlie Blackmon of the Rockies on the show on Monday. Four-time All-Star, prior to this proposal being placed in front of the Major League Baseball Players Association. There was a lot of rumor, conjecture, what was in there. It had yet to be formally and officially presented. So there were no details. He did say that he hopes that no politics would come into play. And by politics, I asked him if that was anything to do with, red state, blue state, actual real American politics. He laughed. He said, no, that could be totally another show. He mentioned money. And he hopes that money wasn't going to be an issue. We also had John Morosi of Fox Sports on Tuesday, and he said, an MLB Network, that he did not believe money would be eventually a roadblock, that would be figured out, and that the issue of a 2020 playing season happening or not would be dictated by the virus. Science. Public health. Now then, the Players Association receives the proposal. Trevor Bauer of the Indians, I think, called it laughable. And the laughable aspect of it is based on the issue of a 50-50 revenue split. I don't want to go down too much of a wormhole. I just want to simplify it for you, is that players view that 50-50 split, which sounds reasonable. Hey, we're not making a lot of money. There's going to be no fans in the stands. We're not going to make as much money. They're going to make a lot of money. But you're not going to make as much money with no fans in the stands. So it's going to be just a 50-50 revenue split. And players hear that. Like, well, wait a minute, we talked about prorating our salary. So you should just pay us for 82 games. And the owners are like, that was based on having fans in the stands. There are now no fans in the stands. That has changed the economic structure of the season. And players are basically saying that's ridiculous. We made a deal in March, even though some reporting says the deal in March had in the fine print that would be dealing with fans in the stands. If there were no fans in the stands, then it's a different story. Now it is a different story, and the different story is a 50-50 revenue split. And if you want to read even deeper, there is a new collective bargaining agreement that is going to have to be hammered out between two sides, and the Players Association is concerned this 50-50 revenue split, again, I don't want to get too much into the economics, but is a precursor for potentially a salary cap being instituted, which we all know in baseball is verboten. There have been strikes, labor issues, all that sort of stuff for years. Millennials, years. It used to happen once every, you could set your watch to it back in the day. Labor disputes. The last one was 94 season. That was it. Now we're in 2020, and there's concern that this could be precursor. Anyway, that is all the background to Blake Snell, who's making $7 million, slated to make $7 million for 2020, going on his Twitch feed and answering questions from fans. And apparently the question was, what about this concept of playing baseball this year based under the construct that is placed before Major League Baseball? Now that we have set the stage, this is what Blake Snell had to say.
Y'all got to understand, man, for me to take a pay cut is not happening because the risk is through the roof. It's a shorter season, less pay. Like, bro, yeah, man, I gotta get my money. I'm not playing unless I get mine, okay? And that's just the way it is for me. Like, I'm sorry if you guys think differently, but the risk is way the hell higher and the amount of money I make is way lower. Why would I think about doing that?
Now then, here's what I will say about this. And I understand Blake Snell's getting a ton of heat. I mean, there are people who are homeless, people who are going hungry, people who are wondering how they're going to make ends meet, people who are unemployed, people who don't make $7 million a year that would absolutely play baseball if they could for $7, if they could, and make ends meet. And, the all-in challenge that I'm going to be making an announcement on later on today, by the way, I will be jumping into this all-in challenge you've been hearing about.
Sweet.
Is about food insecurity and making sure that people have food on the table. And people don't have food on the table. And so Blake Snell saying this is very tone deaf. I mean, he could have this approach and not put it out there on Twitch, but we're in a world where there is such a thing as Twitch and there's such a thing as social media. And back in Rod Carew's days, if somebody said something, in one part of the country, it would take a long time for it to filter through. Now we hear about it immediately. We see about it immediately. And it can get such a reaction immediately that Blake Snell will then go ahead and text somebody at the Tampa Times a little bit more to basically say, realizing that his comments on the video could be perceived as greedy, quote, I mean, honestly, it's just scary to risk my life to get COVID-19 as well as not knowing and spreading it to the others. I just want everyone to be healthy and get back to our normal lives because I know I miss mine, exclamation point. That's what he texted to the Times. I will say this. Tone deaf? Yes. Absolutely. Because of what's going on in the world. But what's going on in the world is this. How do we know Blake Snell isn't somebody whose DNA, whose makeup is vulnerable to this virus? How do we know Blake Snell's not going to be the one winding up on a ventilator? How do you know that? We don't. We do not. I begrudge nothing. Zero in this day and age. Everybody's got to make their own decisions. Now, the pressure that he might be feeling from people saying you're being greedy, I will say this to those people who think he's being greedy. Greedy would be, I want more money to play under these circumstances. He just wants what he has signed a contract for. And yes, there are many people who are taking pay cuts to continue on in their jobs. They are. There's a lot of people out there who are taking pay cuts and not playing a game like baseball. There are. But that's their situation. This is his. It's everybody's own unique fingerprint. And if he doesn't want to play baseball because he's concerned about getting sick, and the only way that he would be less concerned about getting sick is getting all of his dollars and cents, that is his right to make that stance. And it is not greedy. The only thing he's being greedy about is his own health. and he's tied it to his money, and he's made it public. So in this day and age where there are so many people who are struggling to make ends meet, he's going to take some heat for that. But when it all comes down to it, everybody, you be the first one to go out and run the risk, and you may have to for your gig and for your livelihood and for your life. And that's why everyone else should wear a mask out, because you need to make sure you're not giving it to somebody who is having to go out there and try and make ends meet and is trying to keep healthy for their family. You may not know if you're going to spread it to somebody else. But this is his decision, and the biggest pressure is going to come from within. Because if a majority of his teammates, those who may not be making that much money and need to make ends meet and need to get this job and want to do it, or you're Charlie Blackmon, who's just like, hey, money's not an object. I want to play baseball. As long as you're keeping me safe, I'm in. I'll quarantine. That's what Charlie Blackmon said Monday. And as long as that's the majority of Major League Baseball players, then Blake Snell is going to hear it and feel it from his own teammates. We're out there competing, Blake. We're out there putting our lives on the line. You need to play with us. And if not, they'll have to make reconcile their own decision based on Blake Snell not wanting to get sick. That's the way it works right now. I'm seeing so many people on television, on my Twitter feed too, railing about stay-at-home orders and stuff like that. And I know that that's unfortunately been politicized in our world. But they're sheltered in place while they're railing on this stuff, working for networks who have shelter-in-place rules in place for the whole staff because they've made a decision that it's safe. It's safest to do that. So if you're like, hey, baseball player, go out there and perform, you be the first. You go first. I'm seeing all this stuff about schools opening up, kids. I don't want my kids going to a school if they're not going to be completely safe. That's what Brian Kelly said yesterday when he's trying to open up Notre Dame football. He's like, we got to come up with protocols. I gotta talk to parents. They're not going to send their son on a plane to South Bend, Indiana. He said what did he say, Chris? Most players were over 3 hours away from the campus?
Yes.
They'd have to fly in?
Right.
You got to set up protocols and make everybody feel safe so they make the decision. He can't sit there and go, we've got a football season. Send your kid out there. No, you got to set up the parameters where people do the cost-benefit analysis. Like somebody like Blake Snell, and I know there's no cost-benefit analysis in college sports, supposedly. I'm talking figuratively. You make that analysis, and then you go and you make your decision that's best for you and your family. And I begrudge Blake Snell nothing except for the fact that when you make it public, you know you're going to get some grief for that sort of stance. But if the guy says, I don't want to show up for less money because the risk does not outweigh me not making what I'm supposed to make, what I deserve, what I've signed for, and what I feel that management is trying to take away from me, I don't begrudge him that thought at all. All bets are off right now, man, in this world.
Totally.
I'm not going to come on here and rail on him. He is a greedy athlete. Again, greedy would be, I want more than $7 million. The circumstances have changed.
Right.
I want 10. As a matter of fact, you want to take away half my salary? You want to prorate it? You want to then go 50-50 to take away more? Because he's doing the math in his head of what 50-50 after the proration is going to be? No, I don't want to do that. Well, that's your decision, and you have every right to do it. Again, if you're going to put it on Twitch and basically say, I need mine, and it's $7 million, when people are standing on lines that wrap around blocks or for miles at a food bank, it's going to land inappropriately. But when it comes to Blake Snell wanting to play baseball, if he doesn't want to, because he feels he could get sick, and the only way that would make him feel better, figuratively, than worried about not being healthy is $1.01. I mean, we're all capitalists. We all want to make what we're supposed to earn. That's my take on Blake Snell today. I know I'm supposed to have a take here, but I'm not going to just blast the guy. And I'm telling you, if he feels the pressure from fans who think he is greedy right now, what happens when players his teammates who aren't making as much need Blake Snell out on that diamond because they have the consensus of Major League Baseball players have agreed to a construct where 2020 is a season that's going to be played. Well, that's going to be something. Where are you, Blake? I mean, that's where the pressure is really going to come for him. And he'll have to deal with it because he's made his decision. Best for him, best for his family, best for his bank account, best for his mental state, best for his pride. You know, you could listen to that Twitch soliloquy and use the phrase from, you know, Pulp Fiction. That's just pride messing with your mind. I bet you he's not the only player, Chris.
I would bet not.
Do you agree with what I had to say? Or
I do agree. Yeah.
I mean, you
No, of
always
course.
disagree
no,
with me.
I enjoy disagreeing with you. One of the things I enjoy doing most about on this show. But getting aside, I totally agree with him. I mean, he's the one putting himself at risk. He does have a contract. I know the circumstances behind all of this are totally crazy and completely unpredictable. But if you're asking this guy to go out there, I think it's also super layered. Like, baseball is a foundation of America. It's important for the fabric of our economy, both nationally and locally. So there's so much into it that I think him saying this, he's just being honest, and I think he's speaking for a lot of players. So kudos to him on all of those levels.
It does seem like he's speaking for a lot of players, but again, could you imagine? And again, we got Rod Carew on back of our second hour. Could you imagine if there was Twitch, Twitter, and all of the accoutrement when Carew was playing in the 60s and 70s? And people could opine about the Vietnam War or opine about relations in our country, about, you know.
Like Muhammad Ali's Twitter account would be.
Could you imagine?
Would have been
the most
epic.
popular.
That's what I'm saying. Is that? And I bet you there's a large. This will go viral because this has been politicized. The virus has been politicized. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
And this will go viral. And many people who will have a take or a stance or an opinion never heard of Blake Snell. Will have never heard of Blake Snell. And that's the power of Twitch, the power of so much in social media that a lot of players still haven't been able to figure out. Like, if I say this here and I know I'm in a friendly environment on my Twitch channel, if I say it, how's it going to play for a lot of other people?
This is going to end up on the national news. There's no doubt about it.
Well, certainly if baseball doesn't play. If they eventually come down to it and say, throw their hands up and say, yeah, we just couldn't. Look, baseball's got to play if they can figure out the public health issue. And that has been the ultimate Rubik's Cube, because how do you figure it out when it's constantly a moving target?
Right.
That you could tamp it down and then it spikes. You can try and contact trace and then you might not be accurate. It's very difficult. It's so difficult that, you know, our governments can't figure it out. So a sports league is going to. So what baseball can't do is throw its hands up and say we couldn't figure it out because of money. Because then baseball would be wasting the opportunity of sitting right here and having our complete undivided attention as sports fans and seeing this. Because you know baseball, if they are able to pull this off, will rightfully market it as we're doing this for you.
Sure, of course.
Okay, like that we're the national pastime. The national pastime of your youth is back. And we're all going to be watching it, right? 844-204-RICH, number to dial if you have an opinion on this subject or anything else. We're willing to take your calls. So, you know, money is not the reason. It would be disastrous if baseball's like, if they eventually say we couldn't figure out the public health front and we cancel the season, that's something that I think we as fans can understand. Hey, we couldn't figure out the money. No. And in terms of the public health, as you know, had a doctor's appointment yesterday, Christopher. As I told you, we played a little
phone tag.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Okay.
It's got nothing to do with my plantar fasciitis, if that's what you're wondering. Okay.
I was worried about
But
that.
I get the question in the same way that, I asked the question of yesterday, Dave Roberts. I'm like, hey, when you're on those Zoom friend meetings or you're on the Zoom, social distancing dinner parties or whatever you might be on, that so many of us have been doing with friends and catching up with people. I'll ask you the question. It's a question I get whenever I'm ever out and about, say in a situation with a doctor. Is there going to be sports this year? I'm asked that question. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Nobody knows. But I'm like, if you can get the testing done, and he's like, oh yeah, that can be done. And I'm like, what do you mean? And there's, in a hospital that was affiliated with my doctor, point of care testing that's getting better and more prevalent, that you can essentially point of care test, get a ton of them, tons of them, and figure out who has the virus and who doesn't, and be able to tamp it down before it becomes community spread. And if you do that, it's possible to have a sports league season. Blake Snell shows up. He gets tested before he walks in the stadium. He's got to sit and wait. I did see like a shot of somebody in the Hong Kong airport today having to wait 8 hours for their COVID-19 test to come back before they're allowed in the country. Like, this is the way we're going to start to have to live life. And the players, too, if they travel. You know what I mean?
It's crazy, man. It's man, oh man.
It's funny. It's kind of just like, the show in a way, it's the real world where you step outside. If you ever do step outside because you have to do something, you go to get groceries, you go to,
Right.
You got to fill up the car with gas when you know that you have to maybe go somewhere because you can't avoid it. And you go out and the real world hits you. Like when we leave the bubble of talking about The Last Dance, like we'll probably do with Daveed Diggs, or, go down memory lane like we will with Rod Carew. Like, this is the conversations we're going to have in order to have sports, where we're hopefully then we go down that wormhole and we're like, hey, that was a strike. How the hell did the ump miss that?
I long for
right.
Those
You know what I
days,
mean?
man.
Like the days
can't
of
wait for those
outrageous.
days.
Like, how in the world
What is
are
he
we
looking
taking
at?
this pitcher out?
Yeah.
Like,
that was a foot outside.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those moments.
Oh yeah. I take it you weren't watching the MLB replay games yesterday. It was 03 World Series.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Again, I was watching Masked Singer. With the kids, preparing for tonight's show.
By the way, and then 2 nights ago,
today's show.
The old baseball games, I just can't get enough. 2 nights ago was 2001 World Series, Game 4, which was the Tino home run off Byung-Hyun Kim. That was Game 4, right?
Yes, that was Mr. November, right?
Yeah, that was Mr. November game. That was on Monday. Oh, forgot what a great game. Schilling was unbelievable.
He was.
Pitching in that game. 3-1 in the 9th. Byung-Hyun Kim on to close it out. Tino dead center to send it to extras.
Schilling, I thought Schilling pitched in Game 4.
Yeah, Schilling.
Because I thought Schilling, my recollection was Schilling and Randy Johnson went games 1, 2, 6, and 7. Didn't they? Maybe I'm wrong.
Schilling pitched Game 4.
There you go.
Yeah. And Tino just takes it deep.
Well, as you know, Byung-Hyun Kim. As you know.
And then the next night was Brocious, right? Game 5 was the next night, I believe.
All I know is I was in the tunnel covering it for ESPN Radio, ready to go out on the field from underneath Yankee Stadium, and I just remember hearing the stadium shake, and that was Tino. And then when it really shook is when Jeter went yard. That was that game, right?
Yeah, that was that
It's covering
game.
it for ESPN Radio. Hey, man, and before we get to your news, then your phone calls. And hour number 1.
And then Game 5, Brocious hits the home run in the 9th to send it to extra.
Brocious was amazing, man.
Yeah.
Brocious in the 98 World Series.
Yeah, it was that San Diego was insane.
Unbelievable.
Quieted down.
Unbelievable. So, I will
This
hit
World
the
Series, I know you guys lost. Sorry that I'm bringing it up. Was insane.
01 World Series. Is
The Yankees' 3 wins were all by 1 run.
Dude.
Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks had wins of 9-1 and 15-2.
And then just to
And a Game 7 walk-off.
just to put it all in perspective as well, because it's the real world too. I remember sitting in the old Bank One ballpark on SportsCenter on the set in center field near the pool. Okay, doing the SportsCenter prior to that World Series game starting, and I remember because everyone who lives in the Phoenix area knows that ballpark is right near the airport.
Right.
And we were told that planes were not going to be allowed to fly over the game during the game. And we were weeks removed from 9/11. And planes were flying overhead. And we were freaking out. And then game 2, I missed game 2, which was a blowout, I believe, because Buck Showalter and I were sent home to do the SportsCenter hits of the off day in Yankee Stadium prior to game 3. In order to be there for the morning for that, to be on the air, we had to miss game 2. So we missed game 2, and I remember Buck and I flying, and it was just insane flying. I mean, just, you want to talk about scary flying. It was frightening. And then before game 3 in Yankee Stadium, when Bush threw out the first pitch, and the rumor was the president was coming, and we were like, thank God he's coming, because that would mean that's the reason why there are snipers everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay, and that's the reason why helicopters that normally don't fly over New York City were flying over New York City. And the rumor was President Bush was throwing out the first pitch. And then I'm serious, man. I mean, I'm a human being. We all are. Seeing the 4 train go by right field, you could see it. You could always see between the bleachers and the right field stands, you could always see the train coming and going. We were freaking like, when are they going to stop the trains from running during this game or what? I mean, that was the backdrop that these games were played under. And then the games were so intense.
So intense.
So intense. And the stands were so intense. I'm getting goosebumps, recalling it.
That was a great.
McCain was sitting next to Giuliani.
Right.
You know, who was the mayor at the time. And McCain was wearing his Diamondbacks hat. And Giuliani's wearing his Yankees hat. And, you know, the country was one. It really was one. And so many people, it was the height of our nation rooting for the Yankees in a way that's never been done before and won't ever be done again.
Never happen again.
But the Diamondbacks, that plucky team that had to happen to have, and Schilling is a Hall of Fame pitcher, Randy Johnson and Schilling.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Johnson was like, oh.
And that game, the game 7, I mean, I could go on and on and on. Where watching that
totally.
unfold, and it was intense.
insane.
It was amazing.
Yeah. It's just like you said, like the games at Yankee Stadium, the Yankees won all 3 games at Yankee Stadium, all by 1 run, 2 in extra innings. Just unbelievable.
Insanity.
Unbelievable
I know.
games.
And the fans were
they've
going
been on
crazy.
this week. It's been really cool to go back and watch. I mean, something that happened almost 20 years ago.
And by the way, Buck called them all. Joe Buck called them all.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to Joe in a second. Let's take a phone call here. Jesus in Florida, here on the Rich Eisen Show. That's line 4.
Hello, Rich. How are you, sir?
What's up?
I am a humongous fan of your show, first of all.
Thank you for saying that.
I grew up watching you and Stu Scott and SportsCenter. It was the highlight of my life, you know, growing up and watching you guys covering sports in my time.
Appreciate
First
you
of
saying
all,
that.
you guys were spot on when you guys were mentioning the World Series in 2001. I grew up watching that World Series, and, man, as a Yankee fan, I got goosebumps when you were talking about that.
Yeah, me too, man.
Let me ask you this. You know, I was watching the when Jeff passed and then Mark Teixeira and during Get Up and ESPN, they were talking about, you know, the proposed deal. Mark Teixeira said any other year, who, by the way, Mark Teixeira is a 2009 World Series champion. Okay, he won the World Series for the New York Yankees in 2009. and he's a player representative. And I said this. By the way, I have a podcast show on Facebook called Setting the Record Straight.
Okay.
And if you want to, you can check it out. So you can. I talk about them. I explained this on Monday. He said that any other year, the owners and the players, they can fight, over this deal. But this is a fair deal that they're doing. It's essentially an NBA schedule, 82 games. And what is your thought? I think to me that this deal should benefit both the owners and the players. And Blake Snell, who I watch, I live locally here in Florida, and I watch the Rays all the time, And, Blake Snell is an incredible pitcher, a Cy Young pitcher, and he needs to understand, I understand the risk that's involved in what's going on in the world right now. But they have to really, he has to really sometimes needs to understand that, like I was just telling your on their listener, they need to understand that they need to get, whatchamacallit. He needs to get understand that this is a risk. And he needs to get his butt out there.
I know he does. But then again, it's his body. It's his body, man. It's his risk to make. Yeah. And for him to sit there and be told, we'll prorate your salary, and then they agree to it. And then now it's time to play. Well, now it's 50-50, and your Players Association and look, it's a negotiation, man, and hopefully, like I said, baseball has to know. Forget about sitting there and telling the players you need to take the cuts that Major League Baseball requires of you to take to play. Well, how about you baseball, who make gajillions of dollars, and so many people who own the teams are gajillionaires. You make the sacrifice. Okay, you're the one who's gonna either reap the salary benefits and you could still shelter in place. I'm the one who's got to show up. Like, again, this is the conversation that needs to be had, and hopefully it's done, and it's done quickly, because statements like Snell's are going to be bashed. Exactly. And so here's what I will say. That's why I said before that baseball cannot. And thank you for the call, Jesus, and people check out his pod. Nice plug, by the way. I raised my hand. There's an I in Rich. There's an I in Eisen.
Totally.
You have a drop that's right there, right in front of you, to remind everybody what the name of this Rich Eisen show is at every
This
single
is
moment.
the Rich Eisen Show.
What's the phrase that I banged into you and anybody who's worked on this show?
Look, if not me, who? If not now, when?
That's
Take
right.
that for data.
So check out Jesus Pod.
I like how he snuck that right in there.
I respect it.
It was really well done. Baseball
cannot eventually say, we don't have a season because we couldn't figure out the money. That can't happen. That can't happen. They've got to say, at the end of the day, we can't play, couldn't figure it out because the virus, we just can't, or the testing we can't get without you as fans wonder how the hell did the backup catcher from AAA get tested quicker than I did when I'm sick. That can't happen. And every single sports league knows it. So again, if the federal government wants everybody to open up and they want sports leagues to come back, make the testing so readily available that not a single human being will be out there saying, how in the world did that backup goalie get tested before my mom did when she's been showing signs of COVID for a week? 844-204-RICH, number to dial. And before we get to your news update, questions about my parenting skills.
Okay. Are people questioning your parent?
Well, I'm about to give you something here, and
then
even though you're new,
then I'm gonna have
even though you're
questions.
new, you tell me. Okay.
I'm very new.
Squad goals.
Thank you.
10 weeks in.
Barry Zito's on, as you know.
Yes.
Okay. We have not promoted Barry Zito for
We
days
have
purposefully. We were asked not to.
Correct.
Because he had yet to be unmasked on The Masked Singer. I sit through The Masked Singer. Oh, pardon. I watch The Masked Singer with my children. Because they're delightful watching this show, okay? Yes. They think every singer is the most famous person underneath the mask. And Susie and I sit there and listen to them predict. And it's
great.
similar to they take the roles of the judges, because they guess some of the most famous people imaginable. Like the number of people that I forget which judges thought that Zito, as the Rhino, was really Blake Shelton, as if one of the most famous country music singers on planet Earth, who's on his own singing competition
on
program,
a different network,
where you see the human beings, right? They're not bejeweled underneath a night angel mask.
Those things got to be heavy too.
Exactly. I mean, these are important questions to ask Barry Zito. We're sitting there, we're like, it ain't Blake Shelton, kids. All right, don't get so excited.
Lady Gaga's not under the.
Okay. So,
the giraffe.
So anyway, we're now having fun with it. So we tell the kids there's a bounty in the household. If a masked singer is unmasked, and it is any member of the Obama family, because the number of times that's Barack Obama, that's Michelle Obama. I'm like, it's now include their daughters, any member of the Obama family, $100. Beyonce, $100.
Okay.
Crisp $100 bill for all the children. And LeBron James, oh my God, any athlete is LeBron James. I'm like, no chance it is LeBron James. So now my oldest son, Zan, is taking to be really smart, and he's now trying to get like 10 or 20 bucks if it's somebody who's like a lesser star.
Okay.
And
he's negotiating.
I'm not buying it. So there was one country music star last night that they thought Barry Zito was, because again, Barry's singing voice is pretty good.
Oh yeah, I mean, legit musician.
You know, so I forget the name of the country. Oh, Trace Adkins was one of them. Okay. Our friend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that ain't Trace Adkins. All right.
Where is he pulling these names from?
Ken Jeong, who's a judge on the show, who is so awful at guessing who these celebrities are.
Sorry, Rich Eisen.
Friend of the show, Ken Jeong. So awful at guessing who the stars are underneath the masks. He, last night, guesses Barry Zito. He was correct. And even used as his thinking, because they give out a video, they show a video before the song where they drop Easter egg hints. All right. He even guessed that he was on an episode of Jag as a guest star once. They had a Navy hat as part of what they call the clue package. Like, he nailed it.
Wow.
So Xander's asking me for $10, $20 if the country music star is really the Rhino. And I say to him this, you tell me if this is right or wrong. I say to him the following, I'm like, you're on, but I get $10 from you. He's 11. I get $10 from you if Ken Jeong is finally right. Knowing
that he was right.
He was right. Because we've had Barry Zito booked for days.
Right. You definitely cheated your own kid out of $10 who doesn't have a job to make any money.
Hey, it's just chores around the house.
You pay him for that?
He's got an allowance. He's 11.
Okay.
And in the pandemic, I mean, he's doing everything in the house.
Okay.
Garbage, picking up dog poop.
Whoa.
I mean, making beds, wiping down surfaces. He's doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm like, it's not like we're turned it into Oliver Twist here, but I mean, he is still.
Nice dated reference.
I know.
No, I look. I like.
But
this.
that's what I said to him.
But you're kind of like selling your stocks, knowing the coronavirus is coming. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God, I was insider trading.
You're like,
that's what you were saying.
We got sound in from him. You know what he said?
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
Your son just said it.
I mean, the FBI is on the way to your house.
It's odd that my son Zan sounds a lot like Stephen A. Smith. Next, you're going to say he's going to revel in the Dallas Cowboys' misery. Oh, no. So, which would be very odd.
He's not ready for that.
He's not ready.
How about them Cowboys?
Well done, Mike. Well done. Well done.
I think this is fair to teach your son a lesson, but you're skating the line.
Here's the button. Well, by the way, you want to talk about Mother of the Year? Susie, knew ahead of the time because I told her, because we feel for our children when the people who are unmasked, they don't know. And
there are a lot of people.
My kid, I'm glad they correctly guessed Barry Zito. And with all due respect to our first guest in the next hour, my kids don't, they kind of don't know who Barry Zito is. So I tell Susie, right. I'm like, hey, you'll never guess. I got the person who's being unmasked this week coming on the show on Thursday. She's like, who? I'm like, Barry Zito. She goes, the kids won't know who Barry Zito is, but they still can't get enough of the show. So she knew, too, that I was playing our 11-year-old son. She said nothing.
By the way, full disclosure, I texted Susie yesterday.
Yes.
And told her to tell Cooper it was Barry Zito.
Oh, you did that?
And that Cooper should be like, well, Dad, how about like $40 if it's like Barry Zito? And she responded that you weren't in the mood.
So here I am. Dude, you're insider trading in my own household against me.
But I'm pro kids.
Trying to get $40 out of me. And here I am saying, I got an idea for you. I want to talk about Oliver Twist. What an Oliver Twist type ending.
It's like a Billions episode.
Oh, no, Henry Ending as an Oliver Twist.
I have no explanation for what happened.
I'm making moves like Chuck Rhodes.
And here's the here's the button. My son, my 11-year-old son, looks at me, does the math in his head, which is $10 from 0 equals -10. He rejected the deal on the spot.
Smart move.
By the X-Man. I think he sniffed something out.
He sniffed it out like Mooch.
Sniffed it out.
That's funny.
Oh, man. You do play it down. This has been Trace Adkins who's on our show, and then we'll hit a little bit of news on the other side. Since you are an award winner, you are as good as they come, man. You are, Trace. Don't worry. You're so humble. Let me talk about that sort of stuff. So we figured we wrote the lyrics out. We wrote his soliloquy out for you, right? Do we have the lyrics there?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
I got it.
You got it right there. Trace Adkins, everyone, on the Rich Eisen Show, doing Nick Saban's How Did We Get Here?
I guess I just want to know how we got here. Not to offend anybody out there, but I just walked by some jeans, wore out jeans with holes in them, all cut up. I just remember when I was a kid in West Virginia, I was ashamed to go to school because my jeans wore out. Only because we didn't have any better. Now they buy them that way, and I just want to know, how did we get here? Tell me, how did we get here? Don't understand these kids these days. Guess I never will. Somebody please tell me, how did we get here? People, how did we get here? Is that, you know what?
All right.
My manager just a few minutes ago showed me the new laminate that we have for our tour this year. Because we didn't know what we were going to call this tour this year. So I hope there's no copyright infringement. My tour this year is going to be the How Did We Get Here tour.
I mean, how about that, right?
Yeah, so cool. Great voice.
By the way, you got nothing for that, but that's okay. But they literally thought it was Trace Adkins. I think Robin Thicke was the one who thought that Barry Zito was Trace Adkins. Nicole Scherzinger thought he was Jason Aldean. That's who they thought Zito was under the rhino costume.
I want one of those
Jason
costumes for
Aldean is
Halloween.
like one of the biggest country music stars.
I know, and Zan's like, $10 if it's Jason Aldean. I'm like, yes. $10 from you, though, if Ken Jeong is right.
How
and
did
by
Ken
the
Jeong guess Barry Zito?
And by the way, Jenny McCarthy did too. She guessed because in the clue package they had 3 quarters, and she said that was 75 cents, and Zito wore 75. She nailed that.
That is really connecting dots.
That's what Jenny McCarthy said.
Wow. Okay.
Dude, and I mean, Don Bowie's saying, did you say you know someone from The Masked Singer? Did they? Did they tell like Jenny McCarthy Zito wore 75, or is she
Ken
like a
Jeong
diehard
so
San Francisco
wrong?
Giant fan?
Right.
He's so wrong all the time.
That's what I mean. So they're telling Ken, hey, look, just say something
They gave him a little
outrageous.
cookie? It's like
they
a
give
cookie
him a
down the
little
middle of the
cookie.
plate?
They totally
yeah,
do.
just be outrageous.
I've
Ken.
worked on a lot of reality. They give them a little, but they
Dude.
don't. Standards and practices are watching. They're not cheating, but they give you.
But
they give
McCarthy's
them some
married to Donnie Wahlberg,
crumbs.
who we know is a huge
Yeah,
Boston
they
sports
know a
fan.
little.
So
They know.
Well, did Boston play the Giants in that World Series? Who did the Giants beat in their World Series to win? Man, I can't even remember anything anymore. Literally day to day. Because Zito, that was
the
amazing.
Costumes are great.
yeah, whoever does costuming for that show, it's incredible.
amazing.
By the way, you want to talk about Zito's career? 2002 Cy Young, and then he won the World Series 10 years later.
As a relief
Oh, they
pitcher,
beat the
right?
Royals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't he come out of the bullpen at
Say
the
it
end of his
again?
career? He came out of the bullpen at the end of his career, right?
I guess we should look this up before Barry joins us. Let's take one phone call here. Let's go to Jason in North Carolina. What's up, Jason?
What's going on, Rich? Thank you so much for taking my call. I've been a long time fan, man, and in this crazy mixed up world, this radio needs your voice, and this world needs your voice, man. So
do we lose him?
Yeah, I think
Did he drop? Oh,
he wants to talk about.
We'll put him back on hold.
Yeah,
Put him back on hold. That's very nice of him. I guess if a callers are going to get cut off, at least if we get their compliment about the show in, that's all that matters.
That's good.
Tell me how great I am about me.
Thomas in Virginia. Let's take Thomas's call. What's up, Thomas? Thomas, you there?
Hey, Rich. I'm here, Rich.
What's up?
Hey, long time listener. Love the show, brother.
Thanks, pal.
Got a situation similar. I guess it's kind of similar to what you went through. Watching Rudy at a young age with my dad, the character that plays Dan Devine, who is also Eddie Harris from Major League.
Yep.
I looked at my dad and I said, "That's Eddie Harris from Major League." He said, "Not a chance. That's Eddie Harris." I said, "I'll bet you $60 it's Eddie Harris." I was maybe 13 at the time. He said, "So what am I getting in return? $60?" I said, "I don't have $60 there, but I'll do allowance. I'll take allowance-free chores for the next 2 months." So he said, "Deal." Well, when he found out it was Eddie Harris, my mom looked at him like he was the biggest idiot in the world.
I love it. I love it. So you appreciate what I did then? You understand?
100%. You got to teach kids a lesson.
And by the way, if you want to just go down this wormhole, what's the name of the actor, Chris? Can you find out the name of the actor real quick? Because he was also played.
His name is Chelsea.
He also played one of the angry dads in Hoosiers.
Yeah, who was filling in as head coach.
That's
for
right.
Normandale.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, His
for
name,
Coach Dale.
His
All right.
name is.
Thanks for the call, Thomas. I appreciate that.
Chelsea Ross.
There you go.
Chelsea Ross.
That's what he said.
He played Conrad Hilton on Mad Men.
Yes, he did. He sure did.
He's a great that guy.
He's a great that guy actor, right?
That guy.
A great that guy actor.
That guy.
I love it. Oh, man. All right. We don't even have a poll question today, do we?
I actually
what do you
have one.
Yes.
It's Rob Gronkowski's birthday today. So great sports birthday yesterday, Dennis Rodman. Rob Gronkowski today. This might be a little controversial, throwing this out there. You're on the goal line. You need a jump ball to win the game.
Yes.
Which tight end are you throwing to? Gronk, Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham.
Ooh, that's a great question.
That ain't fair for Graham. That's not fair.
What do you mean? Jimmy Graham is maybe the best jump ball tight end ever.
He won't win it. He's won them.
Tom Bowie, our coordinating and executive producer, sitting back there, diehard Saints fan, very upset.
The Graham photo.
That Graham's photograph is a Packer.
I mean, that's classic. I love
Very upset.
All right, I haven't thrown this on Twitter. Let me do this right now.
Very, very upset.
I'm taking TG.
It's a tough question, right?
But he's like not as upset as Packers fan.
I'm taking Tony.
Yeah, Jimmy didn't have. Jimmy's upset. Jimmy's getting upset. Okay, I think Jimmy's gonna get wiped out.
I agree with that, Rich.
Good poll question, Chris.
But it's a good one.
Thank you.
Gronk and Tony are my.
We didn't have any technical issues, so I had time to focus.
You're focused.
Brain power.
Look at you all focused.
Apollo 13 started right up.
So we've got a full house, man. Literally. We got what? Jeez, we've got two pair, and what is David Diggs would be 3 of a kind. You know, like I'm trying to make this a full house because we got 2 baseball players, 2 football coaches. That's 2 pair.
Yeah.
But 5 guests would make it a full house.
David Diggs, did he play
Can you
sports
tell this is my
up?
poker night?
Yeah. Did he play sports growing up? Whatever sport he played is the tiebreaker.
That's it.
That makes the full house.
Wow, man. I was listening to the Hamilton soundtrack last night in preparation for today, just to get in the mood. It is so brilliant.
The movie comes out.
I know, July 3rd, and he's going to be in it because it's the original
I've
cast.
never seen the play. I should have gone. I didn't, like a moron, but
see this.
me and Brock were
It's
saying
so
the movie's going to
amazing.
be amazing. Yeah, they're all in it, he was saying.
I know, it's the
original.
That's what I mean by the original cast.
No, I'm sorry, Rich, when you said that.
Good job,
You're
Mike.
part of the original cast of the Rich Eisen
job,
show,
Mike.
Mike. You're that guy of this show.
No.
Don't go anywhere. Hour 2 coming up.
Audio executive Michael Del Tufo's lightning-quick reflexes on a mixing board are a sight to behold. With his combination of experience, nerves of steel, and endless stamina based on an intense workout regimen, Mike's one of the best in the business. However, what happens when Mike gets distracted by social media posts, fantasy sports, and just general daydreaming? At the Rich Eisen Studios, Soul and Science tests reveal that Del Tufo's delays in opening a mic or playing a soundbite can last anywhere from 3 to 6 seconds. Over a 3.5-year span, these daily delay lag times add up to an inconceivable 78 minutes of dead air for a national show. But when Del Tufo reconnects with his responsibilities, his adjustment speed is off the charts and almost inhuman. Mike's hand moves from his lap to the mixing board in an unthinkable speed of over 21 miles per hour. That's 5 times faster, he'd like to think, than the strike of a copperhead. His fast-twitch muscle fibers continue to amaze as his arm snaps up into the air to signal that it was my bad in just under 7/10 of a second. That's just under 8/10 of a second. It's no wonder that this man has an Emmy certificate sitting on his mantle at home, even though no one's actually seen an Emmy. I'm John Brankus at the Rich Eisen Studios for Soul and Science.
You are listening to the Rich Eisen schooling Brockman on Why He Is Always Wrong show.
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
844-204-RICH is the number to dial.
The Rich Eisen Show. Today's guests: World Series champion pitcher Barry Zito, Baseball Hall of Famer Rod Carew, Atlanta Falcons head coach Dan Quinn, Tony and Grammy Award winner David Diggs, plus Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Hey, everybody. It's a Thursday program on the Rich Eisen Show. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We say hello to our NBCSN audience. We're thrilled to be on 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern every single day. Our first hour of the program, however, at noon Eastern, can be viewed youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. Also, you can hear all 3 hours on Sirius XM Channel 211. As always, my on-air producer and compadre, Chris Brockman, is across the aisle. Good to see you, Christopher.
What's up, brother? What's up?
Mike Del Tufo, my audio executive, as he likes to be referred to, once again wearing some free gear from NFL Network.
Yes.
Good to see you,
Good
Chris.
to see you, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're preparing for the Last Dance. You got that swoosh up on your lid. Very good. He's got the very Air Mike. Another Air Mike. Who knew?
The last mix.
Good to see the last. I hope not. I mean, I hope not. This is not our last mix.
I got a long time.
All right. Well, and I'm doing right now the what many on-air anchors do, which is put their papers in a row, even though the papers are just insignificant. It's just set
Are
dressing.
you going to write in a notebook like Brian Gumbo?
The number of times that I see on-air people do what I used to do as a SportsCenter anchor, which is anchor with a pen in my hand.
Yes.
I don't know why anchors like just going on the air, having a pen in their hand. It's total crutch. It's not as if right now I'm making my point or I'm on air on SportsCenter and I'm reading the prompter. Hold on a minute. I have to take a note.
Rich, what were those gigantic things behind you guys on SportsCenter?
What do you mean?
Now that I've watched The Last
What is
Dance,
it? Hold on,
there
buddy.
are these gigantic
question, Mike.
There are these things that I've been seeing all the time on The Last Dance, sitting like a white tablet type, like computer screen thing.
Oh, those are white computer screens.
Wait for it.
Okay. Thank you, Rich.
But they were in the I think what he means is they're in the desk.
No. These were up above, and they kind
they
of
were
tilted.
above. Like the computers used to be to your right or to your left, depending on where you sit.
Oh, okay.
You know, the
Mike,
computer
I was trying to help you out.
Computer for me was always to my right because Stewart always wanted to sit in that. Whoever was it, just so everybody knows, whoever, I don't know if it's that way anymore, whoever was the most tenured SportsCenter anchor got to choose which seat they wanted to sit in first. So if I had more tenure than the other person, I would choose which seat. I always chose the seat that I was always in with Stewart. But just to show
I
you,
thought it was like the rundown or something. I didn't know.
I could host from right or left chair.
Oh, so you see,
or I was, to use the phrase from back in the day, amphibious.
Nice.
We've got 5 guests today. First up, Barry Zito. Why is Barry Zito on the show? Well, clearly, if you're asking that question, you don't watch The Masked Singer on Fox like I am subjected, as I am always doing with my children, because I'm Father of the Year. So Barry Zito was unmasked last night. Considerable daddy points for the host today is the recently most unmasked singer, the 2012 World Series champion from your San Francisco Giants, winner of Game 1 of that World Series, who will be on the program, followed by somebody who probably doesn't watch The Masked Singer.
Oh, man, I hope that he does.
Could Rod Carew come on and say, did you interview the Rhino before me? I can't believe Ken Jeong finally got it right by saying Barry Zito would be unmasked, which, by the way, is true. Rod Carew, Baseball Hall of Famer, will be on this program. He's the author of One Tough Out, Fighting Off Life's Curveballs. What a story for Rod Carew, if you're unfamiliar with it, other than just his incredible career with the Minnesota Twins and the Los Angeles and California Angels. He will be joining us on this program on the back end of this hour. And then we've got, after 2 baseball players, 2 head coaches in the NFL. Dan Quinn of the Falcons, Mike Vrabel of Tennessee, and then more daddy points because my kids and my whole family loves Hamilton. David Diggs, who was in the original cast of Hamilton as both Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson, is in a new TNT program called Snowpiercer, and that debuts on Sunday, and it's already so popular that it's already been renewed for a 2nd season. Go figure that. He'll be on this program as well. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. One thing to ask Dan Quinn, and we'll set this up, is Todd Gurley is now back in the state of Georgia, getting set to play football. The former Georgia Bulldog who blew out his knee, and the Rams chose him 10th overall in the draft despite his blown-out knee, figuring that when he comes back, he would be a lot more productive than even a 10th overall pick in the draft used on a running back would be. And sure enough, they were right until it seemed like something happened with Todd Gurley physically towards the end of their Super Bowl regular season campaign. C.J. Anderson, as we all know, was a battering ram for that offense, and that was not any pun intended. Gurley just wasn't the same guy for the last, what would you say, 22 games of his Rams playing career. 24 games of his Rams playing career. Averaged 17 carries a game. I mean, 17 touches and 17 touches a game for somebody like Gurley. That's absurd. So Dirk Cutter, the new offensive coordinator, back again, I guess what's old is new again. Dirk Cutter, the offensive coordinator for Atlanta, just today on a Zoom conference call with reporters, said essentially the main question is that no one seems to know is what's his health status. What's his workload? He averaged about 17 touches a game last year, which is about a little bit lower than he had been when he was an all-pro. We're just going to have to find that out once we get here and get him working, get him up and running. Dan Quinn on the clock in about an hour's time. We will ask him that. And speaking of on the clock, he's one of those coaches who's got a clock on the wall where there are no numbers on the clock. It just says now. So to use that phrase, it would be 6 minutes past now, wherever you're looking. It's now o'clock in Dan Quinn's world, and an hour from now will be now o'clock for the Rich Eisen Show with Dan Quinn. Something also, I guess, to ask Barry Zito when he joins us, other than, hey, how is it like to be the Rhino on The Masked Singer? He certainly knows what it's like to be a left-handed pitcher that a lot of people count on a staff. And Barry Zito, he also knows what it's like to be a Cy Young Award winner and the pressures that come along with that. He won the 2002 Cy Young Award and a 2012 World Series champion that he got off on a right start, sweeping the Detroit Tigers, beating Justin Verlander in that game one of that World Series, Christopher. It's not a bad thing to have on your resume.
Did, yeah.
Reason why I bring all that up is there is a Cy Young pitcher, Blake Snell, of the Tampa Bay Rays, who was answering questions on his Twitch feed yesterday. And do you have that soundbite, my audio executive?
I got it.
This was what Blake Snell had to say as we're waiting to hear how the negotiations and the machinations between Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball's union, if we can hammer out the monetary issues to get a 2020 playing season started. And this is what Blake Snell had to say upon learning that it's not a prorated salary. It's a 50-50 revenue split, and there's not enough time for me to go into the economics of this, but the Players Union fears that this could be the very beginning of a salary cap being entered into the fray. Hey, as long as you played under salary cap, even in a pandemic, how about this new collective bargaining agreement that we're hammering out? And players are essentially saying, we agreed to a prorated salary back in March, and we don't care that there's no fans coming now. You have $1 gajillion in the bank. How about we're the ones that are putting our health on the line, and you pay us the prorated salary we agreed to back in March? Here's what Snell had to say on his Twitch feed last night when he was taking questions from fans.
Y'all got to understand, man, for me to take a pay cut is not happening because the risk is through the roof. It's a shorter season. Less pay, like, bro, man, I gotta get my money. I'm not playing unless I get mine, okay? And that's just the way it is for me. Like, I'm sorry if you guys think differently, but the risk is way the hell higher and the amount of money I make is way lower. Why would I think about doing that?
Very tone deaf out of Blake Snell in a day and age where people are waiting on food lines. Again, I'm going to announce an all-in challenge contribution later on today. That's about food security. People are going hungry. And I'm sure a lot of people going hungry don't want to hear baseball players saying, I'm supposed to make $7 million a year and I better get the prorated version of that and not less because I don't want to get sick. And I will basically say, tone deaf, sure. Understandable that he's taking that approach, 1,000%. We live in a pandemic where we're all taking risks, doing whatever we need to do to make our families meet, our ends meet. We're, thank God, healthy enough and able to be socially distant enough here to do this show every day, and as long as we can, we will. And I understand that people call in and say, hey, thank you for being on the air, and we take that very seriously and appreciate it. And I'm not mentioning that here to give anybody here a pat on the back, let alone myself. I'm saying that we all take an analysis about what we can do in our world and what we want to do in our world about our profession and whether it's worth coming in to do it. And regardless if anybody feels like it's something that they need and that we have a certain responsibility to do, as much as we feel it, if we don't feel like doing it or we feel pressures about getting sick to do it, we're not going to do it. And same would go for you, wherever you are taking this show in. So I don't begrudge Snell at all. At all. And again, it's the usual approach, too, where fans are like blaming any fans that might be out there calling him greedy. Greedy would be Blake Snell saying, I want more money to play. Snell is like, I just want what I have signed for in order to take the risks that would be required to find out whether I either have had it or whether I might get it, or find out if I'm one of those people that could wind up on a ventilator. He's got to do that analysis in his head. I would just counsel him to not put it on his Twitch feed. And if he wants to have that approach, he can take that approach. And then probably the ultimate pressure would come from his teammates if most of his teammates have the approach of Charlie Blackmon, which is like, I'll do it. I'll even quarantine. As long as I'm healthy and as long as I know I'm not passing it to anybody, as long as the health protocols are handled, I'm in. I'll play baseball. And I hope that the politics, a.k.a. money, doesn't come to the fore. And that's just one last thing I want to say on this subject, and we'll bounce this one off of Barry Zito and even Rod Carew later on in this hour, is that many people out there point the finger at the players. What about management? How about you? You know, I understand that you're going to lose a ton of money, but how about this will be the year you take the biggest loss possible, right? And you're the ones that need to be responsible to put baseball on the field. You're the ones. Or there's a shared responsibility in that regard, in a way that we as fans can understand that you are going to take the risk, and we appreciate that. And one thing that baseball just can't do at this point in time, that there's a one thing that they have a responsibility to do right now, is to work out the money. Can't have baseball after all this time throw their hands up and say, couldn't figure it out because dollars and cents, and then point fingers as to who's greedy and who's not and all that. We don't want that. We don't want that. Totally understandable if baseball comes out and says, hey, the public health questions, just too much of a Rubik's Cube for us to all color code it properly on the same side of the cube here. Couldn't figure that one out. Virus is changing every day. The amount of tests that it would require for us to have baseball would be offensive to the fan base when they read that the third string catcher from the AAA affiliate that gets called up from quarantine, most likely, that catcher who gets called up to be added to the 50-man roster or what have you, that person gets a test before your mom, who's been working on a factory line and she's been showing COVID-19 symptoms for days and she can't get tested. If baseball says we couldn't figure all that stuff out, we cancel the 2020 season, we as fans, I think, will be totally understanding. If baseball comes back and say players were too greedy, or players come back and say owners couldn't be people of their word, and we just throw our hands up and can't figure out the dollars and cents, I think that would damage baseball way more than they would potentially think they would be damaging themselves by not having a playing season when there's a captive audience ready for it. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. When we come back, our poll question from Chris Brockman at Rich Eisen Show. And then Barry Zito. The Rhino. Not the Athletic, not the Giant, not the Cy Young Award winner. The Rhino from The Masked Singer and baseball on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, our friend Jason in North Carolina last hour, all of our friends here at youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, the Wormhole, all the 454s. We love chatting with you. TJ Jefferson loves chatting with you. Whenever I can get a chance, I love chatting with you too. But you all know that Jason's phone kind of crapped out on him.
Yep.
Is Jason back on, Mike?
Let's see.
Jason, you there? Oh, my gosh.
He is not there.
He's gone.
Oh, hold on. Hello?
Oh, there.
I was literally in the room with my 5-month-old son trying to change a dirty diaper, brothers. I'm so sorry.
Appreciate you.
Brockman can feel you.
You're in it. You're in it. Get in there, man. Change those diapers, man. It makes you a better person, and you'll miss it. You'll miss it later on in life.
Absolutely. I'm going to skip all the nice stuff that I said before and just get right to it.
Get right to it. Sure, please.
So this is kind of a 3 degrees of separation show for me. This is the first radio show I've ever that's ever taken my call, so I really appreciate that. And I grew up in the East Bay, and also happened to be working on Broadway at the same time that David was. So it's cool to see a Bay boy doing good things.
How about that?
So in 2001, that was probably, as an A's fan, I grew up an A's fan. And that was probably the team that gave me the highest highs and the lowest of lows, and they were pretty unique, especially the locker room. And speaking of that, I wonder if you could ask Barry Zito to speak on any of those stories that he could share on air, if there's any to be shared. But in regards to that playoff series between the Yankees and the A's, I wonder if you could pontificate at all upon, because we were up, I believe, 2-0. We took both games, and then you had Game 3, which I believe Barry started.
He did indeed, going against Mike Messina, and that led to the famed Jeter flip play that Chris Brockman feels was not a real out at home plate. He believes Jeremy Giambi was safe to this day.
Fact.
And it's one of those things that I look at it and it breaks my heart. But you also got to tip your cap to one of the greatest shortstops that ever played the game.
What's he doing in that position? Why would he be cutting off the throw and then being so brilliant to flip it so quickly?
I don't know. And it's, as a ball player myself, seeing Jeremy, in a way you can even, because Posada is having his glove low, right? So you got to believe that he's going for where the slide is going to be. And so in that split-second decision, Jeremy's going to try to step over the glove.
Yeah. Instead of slide. If he had slid. Oh my God! Jason, I'm sorry. I've got to cut you off because the NBC crew is about to be rejoining us. Enjoy those days with your son, and stick around for the David Diggs conversation. That'll be fun.
Appreciate it, bro.
Right back at you. There you go. Yeah, Zito. Zito needed that run. If the A's needed that run, it would have been 1-1. 844-204-RICH, number to dial. Barry Zito is about to dial into the program. Every single day, we throw up a poll question on our Twitter handle at Rich Eisen Show, which we would appreciate. Do you follow and give it a little click there? And everything that we do, whether it's Instagram or our YouTube page, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, a subscribe. Click there means the world to us. We'd greatly appreciate that. But our poll question sits on our Twitter feed every single day at Rich Eisen Show. What do you have over there, Christopher?
Okay, so yesterday we had a great sports birthday, Dennis Rodman. Today, Rob Gronkowski is 31 years young. Came out of retirement, joining Tom Brady in Tampa. So here's what I came up with. You're on the goal line. You need a touchdown to win the game. Which of these tight ends are you throwing the jump ball to?
All right.
For the game-winning touchdown?
All right.
Gronk, Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham. Now, I know Jimmy Graham is a little controversial to have on here. Could have went Kellen Winslow, whatever. I'm keeping it a little modern. And Jimmy Graham, the tallest guy on this list, was a
basketball player.
Player.
So is Tony Gonzalez.
Goal
with
line
Jason Kidd, by the way.
Beast. Goal line beast for the Saints.
Gates was a basketball. Gronk is the only one on the screen, and I guess was never really a basketball player in college.
I mean, you really can't go wrong on this list, but, your decision. Who you throwing to?
Okay. Happy birthday to Gronk. In their prime.
Of course.
In their prime.
Of course.
Not Jimmy Graham, the Chicago Bear.
Nobody's throwing to Jimmy Graham now.
Well, no, that's not true. Nick Foles will be. Did I just say, is this thing on?
Hot
Did I
take.
just say that?
Scorching.
Hey, man, this is big for me. Not only because this guy, when he won his Cy Young Award and was playing in the postseason, it goes so way back, I was covering him on SportsCenter. That's number one. But number two, this is big daddy points for me, and I never thought I would ever say that, but I also never thought I would ever introduce Barry Zito as the unmasked rhino. But these are all true facts because my kids cannot get enough of the Masked Singer, and we're excited to see Barry Zito unmasked last night because they've been wondering who that damn rhino is. And he joins us right here now live on The Rich Eisen Show, the 2002 Cy Young Award winner and the 2012 World Series champ with the San Francisco Giants. How are you, Barry Zito?
Hey, Rich. I'm doing good, man. Yeah, kids love the show, right? It's a great show for the kids.
Are you kidding me? It's a Wednesday night fixture in my household, Barry.
Oh, dude, it's such a great concept, and the costumes are just incredible.
I know. So, how did you get hooked up with this, Barry?
Yeah, they reached out to us and just saying, hey, would you want to be interested? And I kind of, obviously, I'd seen the show, but I started digging a little deeper in the research. I was like, man, there's a lot of legit performers, people that have been singing and dancing their whole lives. And so I was a little intimidated at first, but my wife was like, you got to do this. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You're probably going to learn a lot, even though you're scared of doing all that. And so, I jumped, and I was surprised that I made it as far as I did. I mean, there were some incredible people that got voted off,
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Did you choose the rhino outfit? How does that work? Did you personally choose that one?
Yeah, they give you options. They gave me some options, and as you know, I was always kind of a little more maybe like a sensitive, kind of different artistic guy in baseball, and so it's funny. I never truly embraced who I was, being raised by musicians and all that until later in life, and so the rhino for me really represented that big, strong, intimidating guy that I always tried to be on the field, but in reality, that's not totally who I am, and so I got to kind of mix that with my more, artistic side on stage of the Masked Singer, so it was a perfect balance.
Yeah, so it was not based on your kids. How many kids do you have, Barry?
I have three.
Yeah,
three boys.
Because that was revealed last night, I guess, when you were taping this back, that you had just had a newborn. So did the kids? Was this based on Dad doing it because the kids watched the show, or that was part of it?
This was me just, music's been my passion even probably before baseball. But, for me, it was just an opportunity to do something in music that was way out of my comfort zone and, just to push myself into more and more discomfort, which for me, whenever I'm scared or afraid of something, I have to do it because I usually learn and grow as a person more than I ever would when I feel comfortable and secure,
I was about to say uncomfortable. Were you referring to the costume? I cannot imagine wearing a rhinoceros costume for as long as you did, Barry.
Yeah, it was discombobulating being in that costume, especially the first few weeks where you put this thing on. They don't really give you a lot of rehearsal time, and you're on stage, you're singing, you're having to do choreography, you're having to hit certain marks on stage where the cameras and the lighting are waiting for you. And then you have to sing well, and you're singing live. So, I mean, there's a lot of verticals going on for the brain at that point. So it was kind of an overload, but after a few weeks, I really started to get this sixth sense of where I was in space, even though I couldn't really see out of that thing.
So there's no second takes. That's so it's live on tape. You get one shot at it. That's it, and that's
live studio audience. You're singing legit in the mic. Some people have microphones built into their mask, but you're legitimately singing in that moment, and so you screw up, it's not going to be pretty.
Barry Zito here on the Rich Eisen Show. And now, again, you've said that you're a music guy, maybe even before a pitcher. And you did have an EP that you put out called No Secrets in 2017. And your Twitter and Instagram feeds are at Barry Zito Music. All that said, Ken Jeong nailed it last night. So did Jenny McCarthy. And we'll get into that in a second. But Robin Thicke, who is a legit, singer, thought you were Trace Adkins. And Nicole Scherzinger, who's a legit performer, thought you were Jason Aldean. Now, Barry, those are some serious music names they thought you were.
Yeah, no, that was super flattering, right?
That's amazing.
To get, I think someone even threw out Lionel Richie at one point, and I was like, oh, come on, that's amazing, right? So I'm inside them Rhino Mastics fist pumping, while they're saying that. But yeah, I was glad that I kind of threw him off the trail for a while. I think at one point Jenny kind of stood up and she had it all figured out, which was shocking to me.
Me too.
I guess, and I think Jenny's a huge baseball fan too, and she follows the game pretty close. And but I was pretty excited to have these country singer names thrown at me. At least that meant I was doing something right, I guess.
It was really great, and my kids loved it, and it was a lot of fun watching on Wednesday night. I got Barry Zito, the recently unmasked singer on The Masked Singer, made it all the way to the semifinals last night, currently now here on The Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk a little bit about, who did you hear? Did you hear from any of your old teammates once you got unmasked in the last 24 hours?
I did, yeah. Who was it? The first one that texted me, I think, was Matt Cain, who I pitched with the Giants.
Yes.
So Matt was dude, come on. He's like, are you the Rhino? And I was like, oh, no, man, that's crazy. Someone else just said that. What is that show? Anyways, I've never seen that show. I heard it's good. I'm trying to play dumb and don't want to get in trouble with the attorneys. They keep it on lockdown over there at the Masked Singer. So. Yeah.
Oh, I know. We couldn't promote you for the last 3 days, and I actually, my kids think the world of that show. As I mentioned, I actually tried to snake some cash off my child, my 11-year-old, last night, who tried to take some money off me if you were really Jason Aldean underneath. And I'm like, well, if Ken Jeong's right, do I get the $10 you want? I actually used that last night, Barry, and I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed.
I love that. You got to leverage that.
Okay, good. So we're both Fathers of the Year right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's go down a little bit of so Bruce Bochy didn't reach out to you, say that's you as the Rhino. Is basically what you're saying.
No, Boch didn't. Boch actually just texted me today though, and it's always great hearing from Boch, man.
What's that about?
So he texted me. He just said, "Hey man, saw you did good. I got to do my Bochy impression. Hey man, you did great on the game, man. Great job, Z."
So he's watching The Masked Singer? Is that what you're saying?
Apparently, Bruce Bochy is a Masked Singer guy.
That reeks of grandchildren, Barry. That's what that reeks of to me. Grandchildren.
It really does. You're right.
For sure. So
that's great.
Let's go down memory lane a little bit here, Barry. The best game you ever pitched would be what? What's the best game you ever pitched?
Hands down, 2012 NLCS Game 5 in St. Louis, elimination game. But I think just 6 years of poor performance with the Giants after a huge contract and able to come through and kind of help save the series and then get back to the World Series there where we won. But that game for sure was my career game for me.
Why is that? Other than just obviously the stakes, but why would that be?
I just really tried to validate and, I tried to prove that I was worth the money for a lot of years, and I went through a lot of spiritual battles and spiritual journeys, and I recently just kind of finished this in a book, so it's fresh in my head. But for me, it was like I signed this contract. I tried to overperform, throw a shutout every game. And so finally, by that point of 6 years, I finally realized, like, man, just be who you are, even if it's 85 and, and a curveball and a changeup, just do that and see what happens instead of psyching yourself out. So I was able to do that and, even lay down a bunt and got a ribby. I mean, it was a magical game for me, but, it just helped kind of deliver what I always wanted to deliver to the fans of San Francisco for bringing me over there, which was help win a World Series,
It's amazing to hear, too, Barry, because what's the mental aspect of pitching? I mean, really, we're clearly, you've mentioned a couple times about, about what goes on between your temples and how much that must be so difficult. And but it just looked so many times that you were in such great command. Certainly in that postseason, the 1.69 ERA in that postseason. I remember obviously the A's Yankees games that used to be must-see television back in the early aughts when you were a Cy Young or winner. What is it about the mental aspect of this game that's so difficult?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a team sport, but in a lot of ways, it's an individual sport, because it's pitcher versus batter. It's almost like a tennis match. I mean, you're just staring down, 60, 80 feet away, and you're staring at your opponent. And so, I think it's like a lot of things in life, Rich, which is, do I trust myself or not? And so, pitching is, I trust, I may not trust that I can strike this guy out because I can't guarantee that. I can't control that. But if I try to dominate the things I can control, which is, time up my delivery and release this pitch, and commit to the pitch 100%, then that's good enough for me. And so I always had my biggest success when I could say, I might get my butt kicked today, but at least I'm going to, promise that I'm going to do my best on every single pitch. And that is something I can control. And so when I could get into that headspace, man, the results were always pretty darn good. But when I was trying to prove to the world that I could, win a game or strike this guy out or, be the man, did not go well.
Barry Zito here on the Rich Eisen Show. And again, I know you're out of the game, but I don't know how much you're into what is going on in the game right now. And some comments that were made by a fellow Cy Young Award winner, Blake Snell, just last night on his Twitch feed about wanting to be paid every dime that he should be paid because of COVID-19 about playing. Again, Barry, I know that we got John to talk about Masked Singer and some other things down memory lane, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are about a player saying that he wants to be fully paid in full to run the risk of playing baseball this year.
Yeah, I mean that's I'm not totally schooled, but I mean just getting some info from you here,
right.
It's a real tricky situation, right? We don't want to put anyone's health at risk. And, I will say that everyone is making sacrifices right now. And there's a lot of people that are in precarious situations and sacrificing their family and children that are a lot less stable financially, than possibly major league players. So I just feel like we have to see this thing with a perspective and really get outside of ourselves, and just be totally honest about how good or bad we actually do have it.
And obviously, again, you're somebody with how old are your three kids right now, Barry? How old are they?
5, 2, and about 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, you're in it. So, I mean, if this was your situation when you were playing, it would be difficult for you to quarantine, I imagine, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, it would. I mean, people have families and children at home. It's just that balance of, we got the economy and kind of the life that we're all trying to get back to, and then we have, the health scare. It's incredibly difficult on all sides. I mean, the American government as well. I mean, they're just second guessed on every step they do. It's not easy for anybody right now.
Barry Zito here on the Rich Eisen Show. A few more minutes left with you. Okay, so let's go down a little bit more memory lane. The one batter that you faced where you were like, okay, I think I got this guy. Who's the one guy you were most confident against? Do you remember?
Gosh, I mean, I would say because me and A-Rod really squared up a lot early in my career. He was in Texas, I was in Oakland, and for whatever reason, I had good success against Alex, and then, when he went over to New York, he got me a couple times. I remember he hit a grand slam off me. I think it was opening day in Oakland, might have been 05 or 06, but he got me on that grand slam, and I remember he hit that, and he kind of looked at me because we were friends, and he was like, yeah, he's like, been waiting for that one for a minute. So, but, yeah, it's funny like that in the game. You have success against some guys, and other guys just completely take you deep every other at bat. I mean, a guy like Jerry Hairston.
That was about that would be my question. So Jerry Hairston was a guy that you just couldn't get out. That's who it was.
Man, Jerry Hairston just owned me. Gosh, he owned me, and then. Yeah, who else? I would say any backup catcher that was like getting their first start in 10 days, that guy was guaranteed to hit a homer off me. It was just, I don't know what it was about backup catchers, but they would always just take me deep.
My EP just got in my ear, Don Bowie. You mentioned the word Placido Polanco also.
Thank you for that reminder.
Sorry about that.
Oh, Placido Polanco, dude, come on. That guy, I mean, he was legit, though. That guy could find the barrel no matter what, fastball, off speed, off the plate, in, out, up, down. I mean, he was incredible. So, yeah, Placido, he was one of my nemesis for sure.
For sure. All right, last one for you, Barry. Was Jeremy Giambi safe?
Oh, wow. I think he was safe. I actually do. I really do. And I know a lot of people are upset that Jeremy didn't slide in that 2001. What was it? ALDS.
Yep, the flip play. It was Mike Messina got a 1-0 lead because one of the few mistakes I guess you made, or was that a good pitch that Posada took you deep on for the only run of that game?
It was like 3 feet over the wall. I mean, literally just 3 feet. But no, I mean, there was a lot of controversy. Why didn't Jeremy slide? But at the end of the day, dude, Jeremy came around third, probably looked, saw Shane Spencer throw the ball in from right field, saw that the ball was going to go over the cutoff man's head. And the last thing he ever expected is the friggin' shortstop was going to be over there on the first base line. So I think most guys would have done the exact same thing because Derek Jeter should have never been on the first base line.
Never. I mean, and then he flips it, and so you think, again, Jeremy got in his foot down before the tag was applied?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
And where were you?
I'm talking millimeters, you know what I mean? But I do.
You had a good look, too, right, from the dugout? You had a good look? Right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of foul territory in Oakland, so we were pretty far. So I don't know if you can trust my opinion, but, and maybe I'm a little biased.
No, I understand that. I totally understand that. I completely would understand that. But there is a lot of, you're right. You could fit like a par 3 golf hole on the foul territory in Oakland.
Oh yeah. No, that place is a pitcher's dream, man.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, look, Barry, congrats on getting as far as you did in The Masked Singer. It'll be something, for you to show all your kids for years from now, man. What a blast! What a blast! Thanks for coming on and sharing the time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Rich.
You got it. That's Barry Zito, the Rhino. Oh, also the Cy Young Award winner and the 2012 World Series champion. He won that game one. Again, I mean, the Yankees lost the first 2 games of that series at home as Mark Mulder outdueled Roger Clemens. Tim Hudson outdueled Andy Pettitte in game 2. Jason Isringhausen with the save in both, former Met.
Wow.
And then the Yanks got one in Oakland when Giambi didn't slide. He's out. I remember thinking to myself, if he scores to make it a 1-1 game, this thing's over. The Yankees were not going to get another run off of Zito. That's it. And then El Duque had a nice game with 9 runs of support in game 4 before it all came back down to Yankee Stadium. And the Yankees touched up Mulder when the A's got to the Yankee pen. They got Mulder late, and that's all she wrote. You give a 2-run lead to Mariano Rivera in a game 5 like that, that would be it.
It's one of those
series. I should say that they did give a lead to Mariano Rivera a couple of series later in Arizona, and it didn't work out. But
one of those plays you wish there was replay for.
You could see it on replay. You can't tell.
I'm watching it. I'm watching it right now.
And what?
You can't tell.
And what?
I mean, I think he's safe, but so I'm seeing it through the eyes of.
You can see
he's definitely safe.
It's a frame where his foot's on the base and the tag's definitely not, without a shadow of a doubt.
Thing is, you
full on replay standards of it need to be 1,000,000%, 1,000%.
It's because they don't have the second angle, so you can't see when Posada tags him.
Okay. And if you feel that way, that's your opinion. I think Bronson Arroyo's lost the ball, and Alex Rodriguez made the right play. So right back at you.
Fair.
Rod Carew, Baseball Hall of Famer, when we come back. By the way, I'm so glad I chose that moment out of all to try and counter your argument.
That was pretty funny. So there's a frame where, Giambi's foot is maybe this far from the plate.
You can't tell.
And Posada's glove is next to his calf, but you can't tell from the angle if he's tagging him or not. You don't know where the glove is in relationship to the calf.
The ultimate disputable evidence. It's disputable.
Oh, it's totally.
So that's why I'm saying replay would not have overturned it.
Maybe there's a different angle that we just don't have.
Oh, my word.
He's safe.
So Rod Carew's in a home run derby app right now. You know that?
Wait, what?
You want to show this, Don? Before we get Rod on the show, as we're on Sirius XM and our YouTube stream right now. Yeah, there's a home run derby, and you can pull up Rod Carew, level 14. There you go. There he is. That's in the old Yankee Stadium there.
Rod Carew playing in a home run derby. You want to take a guess on career home runs for Rod Carew?
You want to have Rod guess? You know. Oh, my God, that's tape measure.
I'm sure that he knows.
714 feet?
I mean, where are we going?
What?
He hit the train.
Oh, my gosh.
714 feet?
That hit the top of the train, Rich.
771 feet?
This is incredible.
That might have gone over the tracks.
I mean, in the Twins outfit, he looks more like Ortiz when Ortiz was a Twin.
Hey.
The natural.
This is like NFL Blitz,
Come
but
on.
the baseball version.
He hit the building. Yep,
I
it's
love
over
it.
that building.
By the way,
he hit it to Brooklyn.
816 foot?
I mean,
come on.
That might be in Brooklyn.
By the way, yeah, these are landing in. I mean, Berman with back.
He'd be done. Back.
Let's go to Syosset.
I mean, that may be on Long Island, Rich.
766 feet.
I mean,
all right. I think we made our point that this is a wild app.
The ball went to Montauk Point.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, man.
Oh boy, first ballot Hall of Famer, 90.5%. Who, you know?
Again,
who's
I know.
the 9.5% that says Rod Carew needed to wait? Come on.
He hit 388 one year.
We'll chat with Rod Carew when we come back. Eight 844-204-RICH, number to dial. We've got two NFL head coaches, Dan Quinn and Mike Vrabel, and David Diggs from Hamilton, and now from a new TNT show called Snowpiercer. That's in our final hour, but we turn back to the phone lines right now. I mean, that's why I love doing this show. We have a recent baseball player, and Barry Zito, who's on because he was unmasked as the Rhino in The Masked Singer.
Right.
And now we've got a National Baseball Hall of Famer and one of the all-time greats from Minnesota and also here in Southern California as a Los Angeles and California Angel, talking about his new autobiography, which is available now wherever books are sold, the author of One Tough Out, Fighting Off Life's Curveballs, the great Rod Carew. How are you, sir?
I am doing good, Rich. Thank you so much for having me on.
You got it. In our commercial break for our YouTube and our Sirius XM audience, we were showing you are available to be chosen in a home run derby app, 2020 home run derby app that a lot of people are playing right now in quarantine. You're hitting 800-foot home runs in the old Yankee Stadium. I don't know if you're aware of that, Rod.
In Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I know that I've hit a couple up in the upper deck, but those were just luck.
Those just these ones that we're showing right now, they go 800 feet halfway to Long Island. Do you know how many career home runs did you hit? Do you know that number off the top of your head? Right?
Oh, yeah, 92.
Chris Brockman?
Correct.
All right. I by the way, I'd know that number as well. Who is the toughest pitcher you had to face, Rod, that you thought that, I need to come to work today, correct?
The main guy was Rudy May and also Ron Guidry.
Oh.
Those are guys that I really had to have my game on that day.
Louisiana Lightning, who the year after you won the MVP was a Cy Young Award winner, one of the best left-handers in the game. And then who did you own? Which pitcher did you say, okay, this is going to be my day today. It's my birthday today, Rod?
Well, I think Catfish Hunter. I think I did real well against him.
No kidding. Why was that? Just because? That just happened?
He just challenged you. He just came right at you.
I'm
he
sure.
didn't play games when he was on the mound. He didn't play games. He was out there to get you out. If it's in 3 pitches, he was going to get you out.
American League batting title winner for 7 times, Rod Carew, Baseball Hall of Famer here on the Rich Eisen Show. I guess walk me through your autobiography here, Rod. Why, for those who may not know, but why do you call it One Tough Out, fighting off life's curveballs, Rod?
Well, Rich, kudos to Reggie Jackson. He named the book because playing against him for so many years, he noticed that I wasn't an easy out. So I've had some things that has happened in my life, and they were tough, and Reggie felt that way. So kudos to him for naming the book, One Tough Out.
So for those, again, who may not know, and what are some of the stories that you are telling in your autobiography, Rod?
Well, we go back to some of the Twin stuff against Calvin Griffith and the way that I got to the Minnesota Twins organization. But those were a far cry from what I went through, when I had my heart attack and recovering from that heart attack.
And then talking about some of the abuse you overcame to even reach the major leagues. What is that about, Rod?
Well, when I was a kid, Rich, I was a very sickly kid. I had rheumatic fever and spent almost a year in the hospital. And, my dad just didn't take any particular interest in me, even as I was growing up playing in the Little League programs in Panama. He thought that I was too much of a pet of my mom's, because she really looked after me after I got sick and really took care of me. So he didn't think I had it in me to be what I wanted to be, was a Major League Baseball player.
And so why did you continue to play baseball? How did you first how did you discover the sport, Rod?
Well, I loved it. I played stickball. We played stickball in Panama. We used to put the names of Jackie Robinson and Ted Williams and all the great hitters on our broomsticks, and that's how we started. It was a fun thing for us to do, and I always wanted to be a Major League Baseball player because, I used to listen to the Armed Forces radio on the weekends, and when they said they had 50,000 people in the stands watching the games, I just didn't believe them. We didn't have TVs to see it. So I said to my mom, maybe one day I'll get the opportunity to play in front of 50,000 people, which that dream came true.
Rod Carew, Baseball Hall of Famer here on the Rich Eisen Show. And then just staying, I guess, in your own personal life about some of the challenges later in life that you, after your playing career. I'll give you the floor on that and what you'd like people to know about that in advance of reading your book, One Tough Out, Rod.
Well, Rich, I had a really big heart attack. I was doing an event for the Angels at the stadium the night before that I had the heart attack. And, I think I flatlined 2 or 3 times. So, I kept asking God, I says, don't you want me? Aren't you ready for me? Don't you need a good hitter? So, those are my thoughts. And he kept saying to me, no, I'm not ready for you yet. I'll let you know when I'm ready. But it was a situation that, I went out and I was playing by myself. And, after I put my club back in the bag, my hands were getting clammy and I had like an indigestion burn in my chest. And it's the first time that I ever felt anything like that. And so it's a good thing I was on the first hole, because if I was on the second hole, they wouldn't have found me alive. But I was able to back my cart up to the front of the clubhouse and walked inside nonchalant and asked the lady to call the paramedics because I felt something was going on with me. And the next thing you know, I was laying on the floor and I was out. And when I opened my eyes, for some reason I saw this paramedic with the zappers, and he was yelling, let's go, we're losing him. Let's go, we're losing him. And then I went out again, and they brought me back. But during that course of that 1 second or 2 seconds of seeing the paramedic, he had a really glow around him as he's yelling, let's go, let's go. And it reminded me so much of Michelle, my daughter, when she was in the hospital, and I used to lay in bed with her and read the magazines. And she'd always tell me, Dad, you can't see him, but my guardian angel is sitting over in the corner. He's got this big white light around him, and he's got his hands in a prayer mode. And I used to say, honey, I think you're having too many drugs, But she says, oh, no, Dad, he's here. And then when it happened to me, it was like, wow, now I believe what she was saying to me.
And talking about one tough out too, Rod, the story of your heart as well. That there is the heart that you have inside is not your own. It's of an NFL player, and this is a story that we saw on NFL Network quite a bit. Conrad Ruland, who is a sixth grader in Southern California, and about the organ donor and who it is. What a story this is, sir.
Well, I was out at I went to visit my son at school, and he was out front running around, and then he looked at me and he says, "You're Rod Carew, aren't you?" I says, "Yes, sir." I says, "Who are you?" He says, "Oh, my name is Conrad." And he says, "One day I'm going to grow up to be an athlete." And I said to him, "Well, make sure that you study your books first." He says, "Oh, no, I'm a good student. I'm going to be okay." And that was the first meeting with him. And here, how many years later, he turned around to be the young man that would give me his heart and prolong my life.
I mean, that stuff you can't make up, Rod. I mean, and obviously he was an NFL player who died well before his time. But the fact that you met him as a sixth grader first, and you counseled him on how to be a good person and also succeed in life, it really is remarkable. And you're friends with his family, correct, Rod?
Yes, we are. After I got out of the hospital, I was able to, my wife and I were able to visit his family and give his mother the opportunity to hear his heartbeat. And, just put her head on my chest and listen to his heartbeat. And she said, just like, the last time that I put my head on his chest and heard his heartbeat, same heartbeat. So, we became tied to them and started doing a lot of things with them. Because Conrad's going to be with me forever, so why not?
Just beautiful, Rod. You're a beautiful human, man, and I'm hoping and I'm assuming you're staying in place. I mean, talk about somebody who's at risk or potentially vulnerable to this awful virus. I would imagine it's somebody who's had a heart transplant at age 74. So I assume you're staying in place, right, Rod?
Yes, sir, I am, Rich. I don't see other people, and it's hard for me because I like talking to people, but I know the risk that I have as far as having a heart attack in my immune system. I could just pick it up and die. So I have self-quarantined myself in my home, and it's boring, but, it's something that I have to do to stay alive.
You bet, Rod. Look, again, I know we've met on occasion, and you've been on this show before. If you just want to call in and talk and just, and hang out on this show, just talk baseball, and hopefully we have a playing season to talk about. But even if not, I'd love to go down one by one every single All-Star. You're an 18-time All-Star. I mean, all the stories. Please, I'd love to help you pass the time at the very least, Rod.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a great idea because, I love talking about the game. I love talking about the players and, the state of the game today and what's going to happen. Are we going to play? Are we not going to play? those are things that I think about all the time. And the main thing, though, is that the guys don't get hurt by it, that they don't rush back into playing real soon because, you never know what can happen, and their lives are just as important as everyone else's. So it's a tough thing, though, what we're faced with today, and God's going to get us through this, Rich.
Right back at you, Rod. It's great to spend time with you, and look for our call. I'm gonna reach out. Maybe just in a couple of weeks' time, we'll just have you back on, and I'd love to know what you think of today's game and who's the best hitter, and then go down memory lane. I'd love to do it, Rod. Let's do that. Okay?
Sounds great. And thanks so much for giving me a platform to talk about the heart problems, because it's the number one disease killer in this country, and if I can save one life, then by me telling my story and people listening and making sure that they're taking care of their hearts and doing the right things, then I'm doing my job.
You are doing that, Rod. Thanks for the call. You be take care of yourself, and we'll chat right around the corner.
Okay, Rich. Thank you.
That's the great Rod Carew, baseball Hall of Famer, and we didn't even talk about losing his daughter to leukemia. Talk about one tough out. How about that? Reggie Jackson, the straw that stirs the drink of his title of his book, too.
Perfect.
One tough out. Everybody check that out. We come back. Dan Quinn of the Atlanta Falcons, David Diggs, and Mike Vrabel. That's our final hour on the other side. Larry David, we've done this before with you.
Yeah.
I've got 3 social situations. You are the judge and jury as to what is done.
Okay.
The first one is destination weddings. Okay.
It's already funny.
Destination weddings. I say to my wife, we're going to a destination wedding. We should not give a present because my presence is my present. What do you say, Larry David?
First of all, where is the wedding? How far is it?
Another country.
Okay, you don't even go. You don't go. You don't go.
But it's a close family friend.
I don't care. I am not flying 14 hours on a plane to somebody's wedding. I'm not going to do that.
What the distance from your house that you would
An hour and a
consider?
half by car. That's it.
Here's social situation number 2 for you, Larry David.
Sure.
So you're going into somebody's house for, let's say, the fight, the Mayweather-McGregor fight. This
Okay.
happened to one of our producers,
Sure.
Ken
Okay.
Tulo, okay?
Okay.
They brought desserts. Fight ends. Nobody's touched the desserts. They like these desserts. Is it okay to take the desserts home?
It's a
perishable.
You're bringing it to the host, right?
That's true.
The host saw it.
Mm-hmm.
It's different if the host didn't see it, then you could sneak out with it.
So if the host never saw it, if
The
you
host
placed
never
it on
saw
the table and there's no note,
Yeah.
that's when you could take it.
If you think you're not going to get caught, yeah, then you could take it.
All right, the last one for you, Larry, LD, shoes off on a plane. Do you have a problem with somebody on a plane?
I have a big problem with it. Yeah. Don't make yourself. It's not your house. All right. You're outside. You're in public. I don't want to see your socks. And God forbid you have a little odor down there. Who needs that, right?
And I don't even want to know if you do have it.
Exactly. It's close quarters. Come on. Take a couple of minutes. Keep your shoes on.
You are listening to the Rich Eisen schooling Brockman on Why He Is Always Wrong show.
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles.
844-204-RICH is the number to dial.
The Rich Eisen Show. Earlier on the show, World Series champion pitcher Barry Zito, Baseball Hall of Famer Rod Carew. Coming up, Atlanta Falcons head coach Dan Quinn, Tony and Grammy Award winner David Diggs, plus Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Final hour of our Thursday show right here on NBCSN. How great was Rod Carew just moments ago, Christopher? How great was that?
Unbelievable. Unbelievably moving. Like, what a story. Of course, we all know how great of a baseball player he was.
know,
Like, one of
right?
the best ever, but man, oh man.
Oh, man. Good to see you, Christopher. Mike Del Tufo, my
Good to see
audio
you, Rich.
executive. Our poll question that's sitting at Rich Eisen Show. You want to hit that one more time? As we got not one, but two National Football League head coaches calling in this hour, as
can
well
ask
as
them.
David Diggs, who my kids and my whole family fell in love with in his one of playing two roles in Hamilton of Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson. He's in a new TNT show called Snowpiercer. He's going to be calling in between Dan Quinn and Mike Vrabel. What do you have over there, Christopher?
All right, it's Rob Gronkowski's 31st birthday today, so thought about this.
He's 31, by the way.
31. How many more years do you think Gronk plays?
I don't know. The guy retired at, at age 29 going into 30, so.
As long as Brady plays, maybe?
I think so.
You're on the goal line. You need a jump ball for the game-winning touchdown. Which tight end are you throwing to? Gronk, Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham. Now, everyone giving me grief about Jimmy Graham. These are the top four in all-time tight end receiving touchdowns.
Okay. Great. And you know what? It's funny. I was going to say Gronk will play as long as Brady's going to play because he's not going to play for, and then I was going to throw the backup quarterback's name out there. And I know I'm supposed to, as the host of this show and also NFL Network, know exactly who the backup quarterback is in Tampa, Florida. I do not know. And I'm tap dancing long enough for you to find the depth chart of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Christopher, have you Googled it? Have you found it? Because you don't know off the top of your head as well.
The backup is Ryan Griffin.
There you go.
And Blaine Gabbert.
I don't know if Gronk's going to stick around for either one of them, but you never know. You never know. And as you know, the National Football League's NFC South Conference got that much more difficult when Tom Brady decided to make his residence there professionally. And the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons joining us right now on the Rich Eisen Show. Great to say hello to the gentleman referred to in the league and certainly in his locker room as DQ, Dan Quinn, here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Dan?
Hey, Rich. I'm doing good, man. It's always good to be on with you, and as we're getting started. So, yeah, man, everything's good here in Atlanta.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Everything good with your family? Everything all good?
Yep, everything's good with us and with the team. And so in this new space, there's been a lot of good connections, a lot of one-on-one meetings, lots of customized, learning and programs for the fellows. So there's definitely some ways to gain advantages even in a unusual time.
Excellent. So I want to put a pin in that for the moment and return to it. I want to get into the history of you in the NFL. Is it true that if it wasn't for a phone call from Steve Mariucci to your house and asked for you to put your wife on the phone to talk to her to make sure that everyone was on board for him to hire you, that potentially you weren't talking to me as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons right now? Would that be a potentially accurate statement, Dan?
I would say it's definitely not accurate, but it is 100% accurate that Mooch did that. And I would say, is that one of the coolest and classiest moves of all time?
So what did he do again, Dan? Because again, I don't want to say that he takes full credit for you and your success, but it's close to full. It's close to full, Dan.
It 100% should be. And part of the cool thing, so Rich, I interviewed with Mooch and the staff there, and I remember getting on the plane and flying back to New York, is where I was living at the time. And he said, we'll call you tomorrow. And so, like most things, tomorrow comes and, goes through the day. And at the time, I was working at Hofstra, and I was the strength coach as well. So I can remember somebody, standing by the phone and by my desk and say, man, if this dude calls me, you come down to the weight room and grab me. And so, 4:00 o'clock comes, 5 o'clock, go home at 7. And so that night, I'm thinking, didn't happen, And so about, like 10 o'clock at night, the phone rings, and it was Mooch. And he said, hey, I want to, offer you the job. And he said, oh, by the way, is your wife there? I looked over to Stacy, and I said, kind of covered up the phone like you could do before cell phone stuff. I said, he wants to talk to you, and her eyes got big, as you can imagine. Like, what? And I was like, I don't, give the shoulder shrug, and I just hand him the phone. And then he says, hey, we're offering this job to Dan, and we just want to welcome you to it, too. And so, like, from that moment on, like, there's a lot of people in the NFL. But if you want to talk about, like, the number of people Stacy would fight somebody for, Mooch is part of that group because he made our transition from college into the NFL as smooth as it could be. And so it was the ideal spot to learn and watch him. And so for 2 years, every meeting, every one, just like I have notebooks of Steve Mariucci meetings and conversations just because it was the ideal person of what it could look like for me as a young coach first coming into the NFL. And so it was honestly like the best runway you could have, Rich, for an NFL coaching career, like to learn from him. And so, yeah, he definitely had a big influence. And I would say in our house, if there's one coach, I would hope I'm first. Some days I am, some days not, but definitely second from a coaching side, it would be Mooch.
So if we're wondering where Wayne Crabett got his strength from at Hofstra, is that you, Dan? Is that what you're saying? Did you get him all yoked?
At that time, there was a good connection, brother. Dave Fiore played out at the Niners for a while.
Sure.
Lance Schulters, who was a safety. And so, yeah, don't think that I didn't call all of them. Hey, man, would you mind giving Mooch a call? Like anything, trying like hell to find one sliver of a connection to them. And it was at one time that, you got the opportunity to do an interview. And I thought it went well. But then, of course, the next day I was like, no, man, I missed it. And so he called that night about 10 o'clock, and it was definitely a phone call. For me, that was my draft day story, like my – kind of not my rookie draft call, but it was, for me, if somebody didn't play in the NFL, that was just as good to me.
I love Mooch, too. So does my wife. So does everybody that works with him at NFL Network or has ever come across him. I mean, I guess everyone not named Terrell Owens. But other than that, that's just
wow.
that's for another show with Mooch. But he's just a great person, man, and I'm glad to hear that. And it's amazing. Again, you've been around him and obviously Pete Carroll, so you've been around guys who are pretty high energy for sure. And I imagine that's kind of needed right now too, right? I mean, even though you're not physically there with these guys, you kind of need to bring that to the equation.
You better have that, and there's definitely ways that has to come across, especially when, Rich, you're meeting, these 25 rookies for the first time.
Right.
And so trying to build a relationship with them and get connected with them. And it's like, okay, to get to know you, what do I really need to know? Like, I know your stats. I can look you up on Google. The scouts have been to the school. But having those one-on-one conversations, that's the thing to me that makes the difference. And so, fortunately, we've had those one-on-ones where it's a chance just to visit away from football, off the field. What are the things that light you up and your family background, and then we can kind of start building that on the football side. But it was that's one thing I would say moving forward every year. I didn't always do that to have a one-on-one, FaceTime call with every player prior to our rookie mini camp. But I will from now on because having that uninterrupted time, entering into a team and a culture and what's expected of you, it was, something that I definitely going to use for, moving forward.
So what are you being told right now, Coach Dan Quinn of the Falcons, where about when you think there could be a protocol for a mini camp or a training camp or anything of that nature? Where does that currently stand for you?
Yeah, and that's the hardest part for everybody, because they're wanting to look down the road and they're saying, all right, man, how do you just throw like a kick-ass week? And so I try to give the guys guidelines just as soon as they're concrete. Once they become more concrete, then I can, sell them to them. I don't want to throw out some stuff to them and then, say, hey, this has to change. I kind of went the other approach, Rich, to say, I know right now outside there's a lot of things of what we can't do and what we don't know, but here's what I do know and what we can do. And so that's meant their workout. Some of the guys are working out together, here in Georgia where they're allowed to do it. They're not allowed to do it at the facility. Some people are in their homes all over, like, whether they're in California, a guy like Alex Mack who's there and doing training on his own. And then they, have, connections online with the guy. So it's really a customized off-season program at the moment. We've had meetings where they're one-on-one, then the next space is one-on-some. And then I'm sure, you've been on some calls too where, like, we do a Zoom meeting where it's, 50 people or, those have to be quick, man. It's kind of like reporting the news and sharing it. It's hard to have, especially for a guy like you could probably appreciate this, who likes humor, when the microphones are off and you don't have body language, some of the humor part that you like to have fun at the team meetings, you don't get to incorporate that as much as you do when you're one-on-one. So a lot to learn. But as far as down the line, I've just tried to stay, hey, man, this is the intent for the week. We have like a team meeting on a Monday, and let's throw a kick-ass week, up for the next 4 days, and then I'll reconnect with you over the weekend, and we'll set it again for Monday.
So I guess you don't have the into Will Ferrell that Coach Carroll has. Look, we can find some comedians who love the Atlanta Falcons to burst in here.
Yeah, we do, and ours is Keenan Thompson. So yeah, Keenan's been on with us.
Okay.
And,
yeah.
We even talked about for us, like, he did Saturday Night Live from home, and I said, what's it like without the audience laughter?
Right.
And they said, like, Dan, that is the thing, where it's like you don't hear everybody and see them, and so. Like, for those of us who love, like, the interaction with the team and the players, that part you don't get to do. So you just try to find other ways to do it, like staff meetings where you get to see everybody. That's better than a conference call. So you just try to find little wins, man, and where you're going. But, yeah, Will Ferrell is as funny as you can. And I've been in meetings before where he's come in, during my time in Seattle. And I can remember, like, one time literally I had, like, tears, out of my eyes. He's like, and it was like ad-lib so quickly. The dude is super talented, man. It was in New Orleans in like 2010, and I can remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah,
funny as hell.
Yeah, Keenan Thompson though, he's been in more Saturday Night Live sketches than anybody else. So I mean, you can go toe to toe. You've got.
We're not backing down. We might have those guys go head to head.
You're not
maybe
backing down.
Will has to come out for our opener against Seattle. Keenan will be here. Everybody has to battle. So Pete and I, Will, Keenan, team. Just bring it,
I like it. Dan Quinn, few more minutes left with the Atlanta Falcons head coach here on the Rich Eisen Show. And another tough aspect of not being able to have players there is what do you have in a player like Todd Gurley? And your offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter, today on a Zoom conference call with reporters said that no one seems to know what is his health status and his workload, et cetera, so on and so forth. What can you tell us about Todd Gurley's readiness and his health status, Coach?
I think, we have a number of new players, that we've added. And so for all of those guys, we'll get to know them better, when they get here and they're around. So on the offensive side, it's Todd and Hayden Hurst, like we haven't got to, be around Hayden and, what's the practice like, and same thing with Todd, what's going to be the best battle rhythm for him during the week on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get him at his best. He's going to be such a big part of our offense. I'm sure that's what Dirk's referring to, to how much is the right amount for him. And that's our job as coaches to, once the guys get here, is to help them understand and learn that the best we can. And that's good communication that'll go on between, Todd, myself, the same thing. We do that with Julio too. And so what's the right amount of workload, for him during the week, knowing that, on game day, we want to get the best version of him. And so that's what we want to do with Todd. That's what we want to do with Hayden, Dante Fowler, anybody that's new to the program, getting to know the guys and understand them the best and how to feature them best. So, when Todd gets here, like we've already had those, conversations, obviously, but we'll make sure that we get the best, version of him, and what does the practice week look like to make sure on Sundays we get to feature him in all the best stuff that he does. So we're pumped to get to have him here.
But I'm assuming when you and Thomas Dimitroff and the rest of the Falcons brass gets together to make a decision on signing somebody like Todd Gurley, was it just a conversation of like, we've known what he can do, we see what he can do, obviously he's a guy who's here, but there's a risk. I mean, it was kind of sight unseen in that regard, right?
I guess the good news, though, Rich, on that one is Todd did finish the season. And so I think it's in some spaces it's probably even more difficult for a player that finished on IR or had to do a surgery or a procedure in the off season. So that definitely helped. Where we knew Todd was able to finish the season there, and so that's a big piece of it. Knowing that he came through the season healthy and didn't have to have any surgery in the off season. So once that happened, then we knew, okay, hey, we got a chance to see where he's at and how we can feature him in the offense. But I think, what is the right amount? That'll have to be, in training camp and in the season. So we find our battle rhythm with him of what his best looks like for the whole year. And so we're looking forward to doing that.
All right. Well, you're the first coach in the NFC South I've spoken to on this show since Tom Brady has signed, other than Arians. Will you be the first to say, bring it? Will you be the first to say, give me that exclusive as an NFC South coach telling Tom Brady, let's go?
Yeah, I think.
Yes.
What you see, I think you wanted it. What I think you're going to see this year is there's going to be some kick-ass quarterback play, and that includes coming from number 2 right here from our team. So,
yes,
for the teams that are playing in this conference, certainly those guys, stand amongst a good group, even taller. So we've got some good quarterbacks. Even in our first part of our schedule, Rich, I think in our first 4 games, like Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, and Aaron Rodgers in the first, 3 of the first 4 games. And so at the end of our, in the NFC, like you said, with in our division, with in the second half of the season with Breeze and Brady alone, and Mahomes, it's definitely a good quarterback driven schedule, and one that we'll know right exactly where we're at, man. So we're ready to get rocking.
Fantastic. Look forward to that. As you know, number 2, Matt Ryan. Many people refer to him as Matty Ice. I've been trying to get him for years to accept the nickname of the Matchroll. What will it take for you to just drop that into a Zoom? Refer to him as the Matchroll.
Wait, what?
Yes, I'm actually
You're going to the head coach.
Yeah, I'm going to the head coach. I'm using this last moments of real estate with Dan Quinn. What will it take for you to refer to him once as the Matchroll, just in passing? What do you think?
It would take a lot, Rich.
Rich, you got to move on. You got to move on.
Come on. I mean, just one time, just really casual. The Matchroll, you have the floor. Whatever you got to do.
No, I think he's way too gritty and tough. You see the external, nice, smooth. Like Matt Ryan is a straight wolf in sheep's clothing. Like he is a rare competitor. He's tough as hell. So yeah, that's one thing I wouldn't, go with him. Like this dude puts it in for it. So it would almost be an insult to him that it comes so naturally. Like he is 100% driven, grinder, tough ass. So that's why it wouldn't come natural for me to call him that.
Rich, you got to move on. You got to move on.
That's what he told me the last time.
We'll fight for other stuff,
I was about to say it could come naturally, but, what are you going to do?
Come on, Rick.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to let it go.
All right, Coach.
Rich, you got to move on. You got to move on.
All right. I've loud and clear. Thanks for the time, Coach. You take care of yourself.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Yeah, that's Dan Quinn. Have we gotten to the point where you're going to start faulting a guy for trying? I'm going to keep trying.
I implore you to please stop.
Nope.
Rich, you got to move on. You got to move on.
I am undaunted. Before we take a break, it sure seems like Todd Gurley, they're like, you know what? Sounds good. He is good. He finished the season. We're going to go for it. And when we get him, and we're gonna need to see.
So weird.
They don't know.
It's so weird. We're still talking about it.
It's amazing. It's almost as if Marshawn Lynch signed with another team and they're not going to give him the ball on the 1 yard line either. Or it's like they're going to sign, like Malcolm Butler is going to sign with another team, and he's going to be deactivated. He's going to be activated in a way that he's technically deactivated for a big game. Like the biggest Bermuda Triangle mysteries the NFL has had in the last decade, still unanswered, now by another team.
In search of.
Wild. Mike Vrabel of the Titans still to come, but when we come back, I'm excited to chat with this guy. You want to talk about a voice for radio? He's going to have one. Daveed Diggs when we come back on The Rich Eisen Show. I love it. This gentleman's been hanging on forever. Want to talk about the Raiders. Let's take a phone call of Chris in Athens, Georgia. So we're going back-to-back Georgia phone call locales. You there, Christopher?
I am here. Long-time listener, first-time caller, and going to echo what a lot of callers have said. Thanks so much for you guys continuing to do the work.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. If we can do it, we'll do it.
I appreciated, saw on the YouTube queue, you were straightening out a Boston Raiders fan who was calling it the Snow Game or the Snow Bowl.
It's not right.
The Tuck Rule game.
Dude.
What was that about?
I don't know. The guy calls in he sounds like an extra from Good Will Hunting, and he starts talking about the Raiders, and he's talking about his dad is a diehard Patriots fan, and he came home from the Snow Game. And I'm like, you're not allowed to, if you're a Raider fan, refer to that game as a Snow Game. Period.
Yeah, and since that game, we're so desperate. Our Snow Game is the 2004 game in Denver. That's our Snow Game.
Yeah.
Our recent history, recent 2004, but great game. And we were a horrible team, but it's great to beat the Broncos on the road. I just, if we go 2-14 and we beat the Broncos, that's a win.
16-0, man.
There you go. There's your coach. 16-0. That's your Raiders season. Hey, I'm glad. Don't be a stranger. Keep calling the show. Call back.
All right, I will. Thanks for.
You got it, bud. There you go. Boy, that's gotten some traction on our YouTube stream.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
You can't. And by the way, I suggested in that video for TJ to post it at Amy Trask and hi. It took her like 3 minutes to respond to it.
She always chimes in. She's the best.
It literally took her 5 minutes to basically say, yeah. Actually, her response was that she refers to that game as something other than the Snow Game or the Tuck Game, but she can't refer to that. She can't mention it on Twitter.
Got to keep it safe for the kids, man.
Amy Trask. Amy Trask is the best.
Yeah, that's the Snow Game, guys.
All right, 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. When we come back, Daveed Diggs, the Tony and Grammy Award-winning actor, rapper, producer, actor. He is the hyphenate for sure. And he will be joining us to talk about Snowpiercer. And I'm going to go down a Hamilton wormhole. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's truly one of the greatest performances I've ever seen live. Ever. And I'll reiterate that when the NBC SN audience returns. So when we come back, Daveed Diggs, I believe he is, in fact, a Warriors fan.
Oh.
Is he from that part of the world? We'll check on that. We'll be back in a second right here on the Rich Eisen Show. I'm now going to do a little bit quick last-second research here. 844-204-RICH, number to dial. We just spoke to Dan Quinn, head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Tennessee Titans, will be joining us shortly. But we return to our phone lines for our latest guest. I just want to say this. You know how in the sports world, when there's a big game that's hyped, it's very rare that the game lives up to billing, correct, Chris?
Very true.
Or a player needs to have a big game, and then that player actually has the big game. Very rare. So my wife and I, we spend literally, we're lucky our children still get to go to school because that's how much we spent on the tickets for Hamilton about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And we heard so many things about it, and we're like, okay, we're trying to, lay back a little bit because we don't want our expectations to be ruined because so rare does it meet. I'm talking about anything I've ever seen live, ever. I'm talking about a concert, a rock concert, anything. Does not compare to having seen Hamilton live on Broadway with the original cast that I've seen it. We've also seen it here in Los Angeles. It's a perfect musical. And it means so much also for our country and talking about what our country's all about. It is just remarkable. The music is amazing. The performances are amazing. And it's going to be back, the original cast for a film of Hamilton. They filmed it with the original cast, and that's going to be on Disney Plus July 4th week. That's going to be amazing. And he plays Lafayette and Jefferson in that production. And he is also in TNT's Snowpiercer that is going to debut this coming Sunday. It's already been renewed for a second season. Daveed Diggs here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, sir?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. I'm a big fan of your work. I don't care if just walking through the door and just starting the interview that way. That's a fact.
Oh, man, I appreciate that very much.
I mean, you must hear that a lot from people that have seen Hamilton and you part of that original cast.
Yeah, it really struck a chord with people, and yeah, I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. You know, that I've been friends with Lin-Manuel, who wrote it, and Tommy Kail for a very long time, and so for me, that process was just the same as everything else I've ever done, like making something you think is cool with your friends. But I've done that a lot, and nobody else seems to think it's cool. But then this one, everybody agreed with us. So, yeah, I feel very fortunate to have been a part of it.
All right, let me just geek out a little bit more on this before moving on to sports and your current projects. When did you realize this one in particular was special? When did you realize that this, when this was off the charts, David?
Well, like I said, I knew it was special as soon as Lin sent me his rough demos with him singing every song, every part of every song.
Hold on a second. Wait, are you? That's how you were introduced to the music, the score, the book, the whole thing?
Yeah, Tommy had said, "Hey, Tommy Kail, who directed, said they were going to do a reading up at Vassar, and would I come out and do some stuff with them?" And I asked if he was going to pay me, and he said yes. And I said, "Of course, then."
Nice.
And then, yeah, Lin sent me his demos, which were literally like GarageBand click tracks with him, you know, and rough, sort of piano sketches of some of the melodies and him singing every part. And I was like, it's brilliant. These songs are absolutely brilliant, even in this very rough form. So, again, I knew it was special. That doesn't mean that it's going to hit. You know, those things don't more often than not, don't line up.
So why do you think it resonated then?
A lot of reasons. It is just that good, you know, in terms of a piece of art. It also was handled really carefully. One of the things that all of the producers, Jeffrey Seller and Tommy Kail as well as the director, were really careful with how it was allowed out into the world. I think a lot of things hurry out. When people know something's good, you get so excited and you rush to put it out. We workshopped that for 3 years before it ever was on a stage, and then we went downtown for a while, and then everyone was begging for it to go to Broadway anyway. But we really took the time to develop it, and I think that's part of the secret sauce. And then also that time in our
we lost him.
Barack Obama's presidency. We sort of saw that in the future too. There was a kind of new buy-in to the American experiment by a lot of people, and the show was sort of representative of that.
So, and then before we move on here, when you're on a hit show on Broadway like that, and the people that you must have met backstage after a show, name drop. Who's the one that you were like, I can't believe this person is backstage telling me about what a great performance we just had?
Honestly, I mean, you gotta understand. I met everybody. If you name a famous person, they came to the show. So many incredible artists who I admire. I have never been more starstruck than when I met MC Hammer for the first time.
Well, I mean, that's Oakland. That's your Oakland connection right
Oakland. There. And it took me right back to being a kid and seeing him on TV and thinking, oh, I could do that. It was that was the first tape I bought with my own money. Was Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him. That was the most starstruck I've been. And now we text. He's in my phone. I still can't believe that.
So you and MC. So how is he in your phone? Is it MC? Is it MCH? How is he in your phone?
I think it's just Hammer in my phone.
Just Hammer. Way to go, David. That's a nice flex right there. So heads of state are probably back there. You probably did meet Barack Obama. You probably did meet the president and the first lady.
Many times.
I bet.
Obviously that's them having us out to the White House was
correct.
The wildest experience of my life. But
What about sports stars? What about any sports stars that you might have met back there?
Oh, Yeah. I mean, God, so many. Magic came through.
Okay.
I remember. I was actually the show was in San Francisco when Steph saw it for the first time, I think. But me and Steph Curry have done a few things together since then. He was such a fan of the soundtrack and then saw the show, and it was in San Francisco. So we met. It was another connection that happened via Hamilton. Anyway, that's a big one for me.
What about Marshawn Lynch? If you want to go Oakland, is Money Lynch ever? You ever crossed?
I don't know. I don't know if he's seen it. I don't know. You're more likely to see Lynch at his store on Broadway.
I bet. So
Lynch is in the town. He's not hard to find.
I know, right? I mean, and he's remarkable. I mean, that guy is truly about it in terms of Oakland. And, it's interesting, too. I got David Diggs here on the Rich Eisen show about what a lush sports history of that town. And obviously the Raiders are now in Vegas. The Warriors are now across the way. I mean, your team would be which? Is it the Warriors? Is that your team, David?
Yeah, definitely the Warriors. Forever, always been the Warriors, even when it was hard to be a Warriors.
Right, and that would be pre-Steph, pretty much, right? You're referring to your pre-Steph era?
Uh-oh. Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Yeah, pre-Steph is the tough Warriors.
Yeah. Pre-Steph, but yeah, the directly pre-Steph when we were like training camp for great players that would go elsewhere. That was tough. Those were tough years.
David Diggs here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about Snowpiercer, and it's based on the film, which was the first Hollywood film written and directed by Bong Joon-ho, who is, I guess, did he win 5 times this Academy Award season for Parasite? Pretty much.
Felt like it.
Oh man, I don't know. He's the man of the year in the film industry for sure.
So, what was it like doing this show? I'll give you the floor and what we're about to see on TNT Sunday night, David.
Yeah, it's a wild show, man. It's set 7 years post an apocalyptic climate event in which the whole world freezes over, and everyone that's left alive is passenger on this train called Snowpiercer that keeps everyone alive as long as it keeps moving. So the train can't stop. And some people paid a lot of money for their tickets, and they exist in first class. And as you make your way back towards the back of the train, could afford less and less comforts on the train, all the way to the tail where my character, Andre Layton, is from, who was part of a group of stowaways, essentially, who boarded the train violently in order to save their own lives right as it was taking off, and have been allowed to remain there but enjoy none of the comforts of the train. And so, yeah, my character was also a homicide detective pre-freeze, and the instigating incident for the show is that there's a murder up on the train, so they have to come back and get Layton out to help solve this murder.
And that'll be debuting at 9 Eastern Time on TNT on Sunday night. And then you're in a new animated musical sitcom that's premiering the last Friday of this month on Apple TV called Central Park. And another colleague of yours from the original Hamilton cast, Leslie Odom Jr., and then 2 Frozen colleagues, and Josh Gad and Kristen Bell as part of this as well. What is this show about?
It's great. So it is a musical about it centers around family who are the father of the family, voiced by Leslie Odom Jr., are the groundskeepers of Central Park, and I voiced to kind of the villain of the show named, who's voiced by a Stan, and they are trying to take over the park and essentially put a shopping mall in it. They're trying to figure out a way to get a park. It's incredible. The music is so much fun. When I tell you Leslie Odom Jr. he's amazing in everything, but he's a good friend of mine, and I didn't know he could do this. His voice acting in this is so good. It's so funny. I'm very excited for everyone to see it.
Yeah, then again, on Apple TV Plus on May 29th, and then on Disney Plus on July 3rd, the Hamilton film. How many performances of Hamilton did you do, David? What would be the number?
I don't know. Countless. A lot. Over 500.
Over 500. So would you even be curious just to watch this back as a film? I mean, is that something that you're eager to see? It's been something I know that fans of this musical is ready to see. I'm just wondering how it would be for you.
I'm very happy that everyone else is going to get so much joy out of it. I'm mostly terrified. I think
why?
One of the things I love about theater is that I never have to see myself do it. And for this to be as, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you talked about in the intro how hyped up it was. Like, I have been living with that now for 4 years since I left, with people talking about this performance of mine that I've never seen, and it's probably the only reason I can even stand that kind of praise. I don't like watching myself. I'll just shut my eyes when I'm on stage.
Well, David, if you need any help with that, I watch myself every day, and I have no problem. But then again, the name of my show is on it. There is an I in both my first and last name. I do feel like I'm a team player, but and take my word for it, you're fantastic in it. So don't worry about it. It's going to be an easy watch back for you.
I appreciate you so much, man.
Thanks for the time, and good luck with Snowpiercer. And when we can have in-studio guests again, I would love to have you. Certainly when an NBA season is back and we can talk Warriors, we can talk all that good stuff. Be great.
I would love that. Let's definitely do it.
Right back at you. At David Diggs on both Twitter and Instagram, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. The Tony and Grammy Award winner. Doesn't want to watch himself back. I'll tell you, he'll be fine.
I can't wait to watch this movie, The Hamilton.
He'll be just fine.
Excited for it.
Oh, it's glorious.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know that that's probably one of those words that I use those words because those are the ones that you see on the marquee on Broadway. Glorious, Rich Eisen! Exclamation point! Glorious.
Excellent.
I used the verbiage.
Stellar.
I use the verbiage.
Nice.
Like, you never say didn't suck. Like,
Yeah,
you don't see that on the marquee.
You never see that.
Solid.
Solid.
You never see solid.
You know, those shows
Solid
close
play.
within a week. The solid shows.
Solids have a 3-day run.
Yeah.
As solid a musical as I've ever seen. The Titans head coach, Mike Vrabel, will wrap up this show with us when we come back on The Rich Eisen Show.
That's so true. You would never see solid.
Solid.
I mean, solid.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, that's a solid performance. You know who's solid? Like,
who is the most solid NFL player?
Derrick Henry is solid. Like, literally, physically a solid individual.
Right.
But you cannot refer to his performance as, that was solid.
Yeah.
Fitzmagic.
No.
He's solid.
He's extraordinary. But you can't call it solid.
Right.
Who? Fitzmagic is solid?
Frank Gore, solid running back.
Oh, stop with the Frank Gore hate.
I mean,
I can't have it.
I mean, we got to ask Vrabel about this, right?
Well, about,
What is going on?
Circus at his house?
Cliff Kingsbury is the one who referred to it as a circus during the draft.
I mean, what is the
There we go.
kid on the
No. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial here on the Rich Eisen Show.
I'm more impressed by the video game.
No, but you want to talk about solid, right?
The most solid NFL quarterback. How about that?
But solid is a word that people use, and it is, to me, insulting.
Nick Foles, solid NFL player.
Yeah, solid all the way to the podium. You know what? That's a solid defense. That's solid. Shouldn't use insulting. People use the phrase and they don't mean to insult, but to me, there's let's choose a different adjective. Again, the perfect example, if somebody is saying, giving something 4 stars, giving somebody the ultimate kudos, they don't choose the word solid. No. They don't. They will not. they'll basically say solid is something that you give to somebody when it's like, yeah, that was unexpected. Yeah, that was solid. By the way, your poll question today, solid poll question.
Thank you.
A solid poll question. Where does it stand right now, Chris?
Yeah, Gronk's 31st birthday today. So tight end you would throw to on the goal line, jump ball situation with the game on the line. Tony Gonzalez leads the way right now, 42%. Gronk, 39%. They're neck and neck.
All right, there you go.
The definition of solid is actually not that bad.
See? It has a solid definition.
It has a solid definition.
Yeah.
When someone states
now
you're
look
a solid
up liquid.
person-
All right, let's take a break. We're back with Mike Vrabel. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show, 844-204-RICH, number to dial. We'll try and sneak in a phone call or two before we end this show on NBCSN. We turn to the man. How about this for an introduction? Like LeBron James, he is the pride of Akron, Ohio.
Wow.
How about that?
I love that.
Why not?
They got the same amount of championships.
He's the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Mike Vrabel, back here on the program. How are you, Coach?
Great, guys. I did not put that in any bio, so
no, you
like
didn't.
LeBron James.
No, your bio is you're from Akron, Ohio, and you know.
Yeah, but you added the LeBron James. Also, could you be any less excited about after the break? We'll get with Mike Vrabel. Like that was about as solid of an exit as you could have had.
No, look, Coach. You know how a compliment coming from you as a coach to your players, that if it comes from you, it's got to mean something, right? You don't just
right.
You come from the Belichick coaching world in a way. I mean, right? You were coached by this guy. If this guy compliments you, that's got to stand out. So you don't just throw those around probably like manhole covers. If you call somebody solid, what does that mean?
That's good. Solid is good.
It is?
Solid is yeah. I would say that solid is fair to upper Midland. I mean, it's above average. But then again, like there's now guys on our team that when I ask him, hey, how you doing, Jayon and Jan from California, he'll be like solid and have this like smile on his face. I think solid somehow is actually pretty good because I'm like, what does that mean, Jayon? Does that mean like good or better than good? He's like, no, I'm doing great. He's like, I'm doing solid. I'm like, okay, like I guess I don't know what the definition is.
Okay, so that's now being used, you say, as a shorthand of everything's cool, everything's great.
Yeah. That's what I've learned in the last year. I'm like, okay, I'm figuring things out here.
You're more plugged into the youth of America is basically what you're telling me right now, because
I'm trying.
Because I'm trying to, you know, like do me a solid. You know, that's my era. So I guess that would be a positive. But yeah, that's the conversation that we have here from time to time is like the meaning of the word solid. Sometimes I get a little bit hanky about that, you know. But I appreciate you bringing that up.
It seems to be a little bit of older show, so you might have to kind of come back into the times a little bit.
That's a solid compliment from you, Mike Vrabel. That's a solid compliment. Hey, and you know it's
very Ann Arbor-ish.
Aha! See now
he went there.
I was trying to avoid this for obvious reasons, but you know I don't want to get into it too deep. But you do have your left tackle, very important part of this offensive football team, right? I mean, how important is the left tackle?
Fun to coach, yep.
Right.
Fun to coach. And plays a great effort and finished off the year playing very well. And so that's the expectations.
So you hand that very important part of your program off to a Michigan man. And who threw all those touchdowns to you in Super Bowl championships, Mike?
You're riding the rainbow, I see.
That's the ultimate. Tom Brady has given us the ultimate retort. He really has, when it all comes down to it.
I used to tell Tom, I said, I always wanted to sack you in college, but you never played enough to actually get a reported sack again.
And how did he respond to that, Mike?
Oh, you can imagine. You know, with his own put down or whatever. Like,
oh man, Mike Vrabel here on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, so let's get into your world now. What
Yep.
it's filled with Zoom meetings, filled with that, or Microsoft Rooms or whatever. I don't know what the proper term is.
It's probably Zoom's probably the one we settled on, and again, I think we've handled the distraction of the virtual off-season program very well. We're finishing up this week, our third week, and have not done any team meetings with our current veteran team. I've done them with the rookies, but it was really an idea to focus on the individual learning, allow these guys to be in there for less than an hour and a half, to not wear them out, to make sure that they're engaged, and that our coaches are giving these guys the details they need to improve and install some of the stuff that maybe is a little different than what we did last year.
So where do you stand on the concept of rookies? Because we don't know, what we don't know, and what we're assuming is you're not going to be able to get much practice time physically with these guys. So are you assessing them differently this year, Mike, maybe than in previous years?
Well, I mean, I think the assessment has to occur on the field, but how well they process information in a short amount of time, what they can handle, always dictates what we give them. They have a little different rules as far as how long they can meet, and so we meet with them a little extra. And then we have a player engagement rookie development program at 3:15 that they are involved with to help them transition into the NFL that we would normally do if they were in our building. And so I would say that it's been a really good rookie class just from what I've been able to evaluate in the meetings and kind of popping around the different meeting rooms and asking questions, and these guys seem to be pretty engaged.
Well, in terms of coaching philosophies, I think, everybody's got different ones, but the ultimate one that you could run as a straight line through every single coach is you can only control what you can control. I know it's a cliche, but we're in the most uncontrolled situation right now. Everything is outside of your control. I had Dave Roberts of the Dodgers on yesterday, Brian Kelly of Notre Dame earlier. I had Dan Quinn. Now I've got you on, and so many people look at you as a head coach as like maybe you just need to cure the situation, or at least you know the answer, right?
And I try to inform our team. This is very sensitive. It's very serious, and whatever they tell us what we'll do, we'll keep moving forward. I keep planning on what they tell me, and that's to continue the virtual program until May 29th. I've set out the training camp schedule as if things are full steam ahead with the rookies and when they report, and the veterans, and the practice schedule and the days off. But when they say that that's going to change, then we'll adjust accordingly. We can't eliminate distractions in everything that we do. We can only handle them, and I feel like our team understands that and embraces that and appreciates that.
Yeah. How often, though, do you ask questions about getting more clarity? How often do you ask the questions that I get asked by fans, or I ask people from your position?
I don't go that far up the tree. I ask questions about, hey, what are we allowed to do? What's within the rules? Tell me what the rules are, and then, here's how we're gonna, go about our business as far as the training camp and the times and things with the new CBA, things that might have changed, the new acclimation period, all those types of things are the things that concern me, not about where or when training camp may start.
What'd you think of your schedule?
There's 16 of them. We got 8 home, 8 away, and we got a bye. So
come on, you can't give me. No, I can't accept that answer. I'm sorry. That's not a solid answer.
That's 5 to 7 on the road.
That's a liquid answer.
We better not get off to the start we got off to last year.
Okay.
We're gonna have to get off to a better start, and we've said this. We've got to start hosting some of these playoff games. The formula for winning championships isn't to go on the road in January, and that's really the reality. The numbers would tell you that, and so you just have to play better. And obviously, the season starts in after Thanksgiving, truly, when teams start going in different directions. So that's kind of the schedule.
Yeah, visit to Lambeau Field 2 days after Christmas on a Sunday night game. What's the coldest game you ever played in, Mike?
That would have been the Tennessee at New England playoff game. I forget the year, maybe 03, something like that. It was so cold that, my buddies were like, we'd open a beer, and if you didn't drink it within a certain amount of time, you could just turn it over. It was frozen. Inside of your face mask, when you would breathe, it would crystallize on the inside from the breath, and then it would freeze. It was cold. I mean, it was around 0, I think, at the kickoff. It was a night game.
Is that a game where Belichick would wear the headband, sort of like the old, the old aerobics days?
I don't know if he went. I don't know if he went with the jazzercise headband or not. I can't recall on that particular night what Bill was wearing.
Oh yeah, but you can as a coach send a message on how you dress, right, Mike? You can do that, right? Where you dress like, I don't care what the temperature is. You're sending a message to your team before they go out there for something like that.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty much with the vest anyway. So it'll have a vest on there somehow, some way. But no, I don't know. I mean, the sending a message is just making sure they're prepared and that they're ready to go. That's what the message is.
What about the famed snow game? Was that not that cold up in New England that night?
It wasn't. I mean, it was just so much snow. It qualified as a blizzard because of the winds earlier and the amount of snow and the certain amount of time. But I don't remember that one being cold. That was just so much snow that they had snow from one row piled on top of the other. So they were only going to sit every other row, but people said, screw that, and they went and they sat in their season tickets, but they were sitting on like a 3-foot snowdrift because the snow had covered their seats. They didn't have enough time to get the snow out of it, so they just cleared every other row and just dumped the snow onto the row in between. And that was – I mean, guys were having snow plows come and take us to the stadium and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, man. I remember that day. And it's funny, we had a Raider fan from Boston call in the other day, refer to it as a snow game, and I gave him crap. I said he's got to refer to it as a tuck rule game. That's probably better representation. For them, that's not. So you refer to it as a snow game from back in the day. And, hey, did you hear Richard Seymour got named as into the Patriots Hall of Fame? Did you see that?
I did. I happened to hear that. I lost for the 5th consecutive year.
What's up with that? Well,
I don't know. It's okay. The funny thing is Stacey James, the director of media and PR there,
right?
He used to call me every year, and for 4 straight years he caught Mike. You didn't get in. You got beat out. Blah blah blah. This year he didn't even bother calling.
Well, why do you think that is, Mike? Just take a stab.
I think he pretty much just assumed that, hey, Mike knows he's not getting in, so why bother calling him again?
But it's about your Patriot career, Mike. You'd think that fans would be able to separate Mike Vrabel, the championship Patriot, from the coach whose team ended the Brady Belichick era.
Every person in that Hall of Fame is more than deserving, and it's busy and it's crowded and it's supposed to be hard to get into. That's why they're Hall of Fames, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen. If not, I'm going to keep coaching and living my life and keep enjoying my former teammates.
If I had to term that answer, you know what I would term it?
Solid.
Solid?
Yes, sir. That was a solid answer, Mike Vrabel. That was solid.
It's the truth.
Well, I hope everything's solid in your world, sir. I appreciate
it.
I appreciate the call. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. You guys are doing great.
Right back at you. That's Mike Vrabel right here.
Mike Vrabel's getting in the Pats Hall of Fame someday. There's no doubt about that.
Parcells didn't make it. Again, Tom Curran of NBC Sports Boston came on 3 weeks ago, and we had a conversation about that. That if he doesn't get in now, there's so many more that are going to be eligible to make it. He will not make it potentially while he's still alive on the planet.
With all due respect to the tuna.
You just all due respected that?
With all due respect to the tuna. You know how many Super Bowl championships he won with New England? A big fat 0. You know how many times Mike Vrabel?
0.0.
How many Vrabel's won? 3.
I know.
Vrabel has 8 career catches. 8 career touchdowns.
But Mike Vrabel
is getting in.
Mike Vrabel was the coach whose team ended it.
He wrecked
the buffet. He wrecked the buffet.
By the way,
at Gillette. Is that the coach?
It took 20 years.
The buffet?
Someone was going to wreck the buffet.
Gillette? Well, everybody thought the buffet would not be wrecked. No, exactly. The buffet would just run out of food.
It ran out of food.
It would be the end of the line. There would
who
be
ate
no more
it all?
buffet.
Tannehill and Fitzpatrick. They ate all the food. And it happened.
Derrick Henry. Don't forget about
And it
Derrick Henry.
I have no explanation for what happened.
So, yeah, Vrabel didn't even get a phone call.
But that's long
Vrabel
overdue.
didn't even get a phone call.
Richard Seymour, long overdue.
Oh, no. This has nothing to do with Seymour's
But it's only one person per
deserving.
year.
He's more than solid. Yeah. He's a more than solid choice.
I like this.
But he didn't even get a call. Come on. Vrabel, the Patriot, is a champion, and that's the same heart that beats inside a coach. Can't make it up. If I had told you years ago, Chris, when Vrabel's catching all those touchdowns, making you so happy wherever the hell you were watching it,
loved him.
That's the guy years from now. By the way, let's just say he's doing it in that 2004 Super Bowl, right? In Jacksonville against.
Sure.
Hey,
caught one.
The Brady Belichick era is going to go 16 more years. And the coach who's going to end it, though, is Mike Vrabel. Can't make it up.
You can't make that up. No way.
No way.
Can't write that.
That's crazy.
Final poll results over there, Christopher. Why don't you give it to me, please?
Yeah, on Gronk's 31st birthday, a tight end to catch a goal line fade to win the game. Who do you want? Tony Gonzalez, 42%.
Yeah. Okay. I want to thank today's guests, Barry Zito, Rod Carew, Dan Quinn, David Diggs, and Mike Vrabel. Very solid day. On Friday's show, Akbar Baja Biamilla are going to talk about the NBC's Beverly Hills Dog Show, LaShawn McCoy, Bubba Wallace, David Spade, and Brandel Chambly of Golf Channel. We'll see you tomorrow on NBC SN.